Hope everyone's having a great day. Have my tea at the ready. This is Earl Grey with lemon. I know I was trying to cut down on caffeine, but this is the only instance of having any this week, so I think the one is fine. Hey, Kim Gal, glad you're here. Uh, I know this is when I would normally do these are the questions. We're trying to do at least like maybe every other week, something like that. Uh, but this one's totally on me. I just forgot that that's what was going on and didn't confirm anything with Hexic. So, like, I talked to him today and I was just like, well, he wasn't planning for it, That's just completely on me. It was a scheduling issue. However, the upshot of that is, well, we haven't done any, like, debate stuff this week, and we can just do that now. So, there was someone in my YouTube comments that had suggested a debate that would be interesting to go over. I do want to. The only reason I'm not going to go over it now, though, is it happens to be another atheist versus Muslim debate. That's not the only kind of debate that exists. I don't want to do too many of those. And we just did, like, our last debate review was a three-part, several day endeavor to get through three atheist versus Muslim debates. So I don't want to go to that well too much. We can mix it up. Well, I'm glad you like the debate review, Chem Gal. Actually, I've been pretty happy. It seems a lot of people have been enjoying the debate review stuff, so I'm glad that people are appreciating my insight on that. I was really hoping when I did them that it was the kind of thing that people would be interested in. So thank you for everyone who watches, both here on Kick and on YouTube. There's a chance we're not going to be on Kick for very much longer. It seems like Kick is kind of falling through with a lot of the promises they made to creators, so I'll keep you posted on that. But for now, we're still on Kick, still uploading to YouTube. And so instead, what we're going to do, just because, again, I don't want to make. I don't want to feel like I'm. Well, one, I don't want to feel like we only talk about one subject, but also I don't want to feel like I'm just uh, arguing against Muslims all the time. There are other people who I disagree with in the world. And so we have some of those here, and so we'll be doing something different. We're gonna go to it's the end of our week. I'm not streaming tomorrow. We should have some fun with it, and so we got another flat Earth debate coming. This is with one person we've seen already. That's this what's it gets it guy. It is a 2v2 debate, and I know who none of the other people are. Uh, Depending on how this debate goes, I might even be interested in reaching out to What's It Gets It, because it seems like it'd be extremely fun to have a conversation with this guy, and argue with him. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. See if I have that interest. The last time we saw him, I was like, maybe I should talk. Then maybe I should reach out to this guy. Uh, we've covered before. Obviously, I think the Earth is round, or an oblate spheroid. Uh, Even if that were inaccurate, somehow the Earth being flat would be absolute nonsense, actually impossible. Um, so, there's not going to be a whole lot in terms of like new positions from the globe side. The reason why you watch flat Earth debates is because you want to see what the flat earthers have to say. In previous instances, if you recall, it's been incredibly difficult to get them to actually express out loud with words what it is they believe the universe is like. The first one we watched, the guy just refused. He just would not, like, I guess he didn't outright explicitly refuse, but the entire time he just wouldn't explain what he thought the world was like. I think it wasn't until his closing speech, speaking last, where he was like, yeah, I think the Earth is an infinite plane that goes off in all directions past the ice wall. Like, truly, truly insane beliefs, but he wouldn't say it until the very, very end. Instead, they usually just argue against the globe model poorly. What's it gets it did make a little bit more in the way of like it did present a little bit more in the way of reasons why he believes that the Earth is flat. There weren't good reasons, and they weren't really like arguments that like necessarily lead to it. There were very often still anti-globe arguments, but at least he was making more of an effort than the previous guy. Still didn't really. He even opposed the concept of the flat Earth as a model. He was like, "There's no flat Earth model," which makes it really hard to interrogate your claim if you're like, "Well, I have a claim, but it isn't one." Like I, what do you think the world is like? I don't think the world is like anything. Well, you do clearly, but I don't know. He also like dabbled in some of the conspiracism that flat earthers do, but they often don't say it to non-flat earthers. There was a lot of the like hint hint who it's them who's doing it. Whoever they are, like you could hear the echo signs, the echoes in how he was talking. It's like, well, obviously no nonsense, but like, so we'll see what they say. We'll see if we get anything like fun and unique and interesting. I don't have infinite time to go over this, so if this takes too long and it's not that interesting, we're just gonna cut it. But we'll see how things go. Uh, I don't know who these globe people are. We'll see how well they argue for their positions. I was really impressed last time. I forget the guy's name, but the last flat Earth, in the last flat Earth debate, the guy who was arguing for the globe model against what's it gets it was uh did a really really good job. I thought he was hitting every metric of like, these are the things you need to do. He made sure that he got them done. There were a few like slip ups because nobody's perfect in a debate. I would have made many more mistakes than he did, but he made sure that he hit all the points he needed to. The only thing I think he missed, if I remember right, was a concrete example of a doable experiment. Something that is like possible for a person to like do on their own, which there are, and like it shouldn't really be necessary, but flat earthers think they know how to do these things, and they make really bad experiments that are really that confirm their beliefs because they're not actually capable of disproving them. That was the only thing I missed from the last guy, but otherwise he did a really really good job. So kind of a high bar to compare these two guys to. Let's try to treat it more in a vacuum than in comparison to the previous globe proponent. Well, let's get into it.
Over here we've got Guillotine and
Let me
Meat
know if the
Bride
audio's
on
all
the
right.
globe side, and of course, Winsett Gets It and Nathan on the flat side. We'll start right out with the um, Globe gentlemen with your opening statements. We'll do 10 minutes each team, and then we'll go into open discussion. Uh, Globe, the floor is all yours.
Okay, so it seems like we're doing shared intros. That's fine. I complained a lot in the Matt Dillahunty and Daniel Hakikachi debate about who was speaking first because of whom it makes sense to speak first. In this case, it actually makes sense for the globe to speak first. While it is general consensus that the Earth is round, most people don't disagree. It is the unusual position to argue that it is flat. It is still a positive claim that the Earth is round. It would be reasonable for the flat earthers to speak first because they also, as much as they pretend otherwise, or at least I shouldn't say pretend otherwise, as much as they act as though they are only disproving the globe, they do have a model they're presenting. They're saying it's not just that the Earth isn't round, but the Earth is in fact flat. So it would be okay for the flat earthers to speak first here, but the globe um, proponents have things they can present to demonstrate their positive case that yes, the Earth is a sphere. It is not merely the position of a globe earther to say the Earth is not flat. It is also to say this is what the Earth is like. This is what we know about it. If the debate topic were closer to okay, so the debate topic here is flat Earth versus globe Earth. If it were closer to is the Earth flat, then no, the flat earthers should speak first. You don't even have to present a globe model. You can say like, I just know it's not flat. Screw it, it's a cylinder. We've been over all of these. But in this case, it makes sense it's fine for the globe proponents to speak
Glober's
first.
skepticism is ultimately derived from a lack of trust in the scientific community. And I get it.
Okay, this
I
is really
agree
true,
that
but you're speaking first. You shouldn't be. This is okay. So what he's going after is like an incorrect approach or whatever, in that the flat earthers are merely proposed or are presenting faux skepticism. This doesn't actually present the case. It assumes kind of a false dichotomy. It can only be round or flat. Flat earthers do this all the time. He's kind of leaning into this, but they also haven't presented a case for you to really do that with. If you were speaking second, yes, you can start this way. That's fine. But since you're speaking first, offense. You need to establish your position. I know it's like 2 seconds. I'm already criticizing, but
and NASA in particular has a motive for trying to obfuscate reality, namely the moon landing. But I think globe Earth skeptics are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think a lot of globe Earth skepticism is due to NASA being sketchy.
this
For
would also
example,
be an easy, a
common
reasonable
thing
way
I
to start
see
the
in these
back
debates
and forth
is the
section.
fact that the pictures of the spherical Earth provided by NASA are artificial composites. NASA even admits this. Let me just share my screen real quick.
Yeah, artificial composite is not identical to completely fabricated. An artificial composite might be, this is what we observe, but getting a photo of the Earth is actually incredibly difficult. So we are trying to create a composite that accurately depicts what we can observe but cannot capture with on film, you know? Like, that's pretty reasonable, actually. But also, that's not the first evidence for the shape of the Earth by any stretch. You could prove the shape of the Earth while standing on it. And people have. If he was going to have these diagrams, he should have been, like, he should have no more. Well, no, I guess it's fine. Did it? I think his audio cut out. Hopefully they correct it. It's not on my end. I don't know. This diagram could be useful. It's not like we can read what's going on there or like see how it's relevant, but we also can't hear his explanation. So yeah, and I'm seeing in the replay of the live chat down at the bottom here, people are asking if he's muted. It's not on my side. It's not on YouTube. It's something that was the audio in the debate. This Antarctica image might be useful, but I don't know where that. Yeah, he seems like a little unready. If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna have like visual aids presentation style, do the PowerPoint. Have the PowerPoint so it's in order in the way you're ready for with the information you want. Instead of like clicking around like this, it's not a huge deal, especially on the internet where most people appreciate when things feel less. I shouldn't say less structured. When things feel less academic and more authentic, you know, it feels more like this is just a guy. This is someone who you might be you're just having a conversation with, as opposed to this is your professor who's talking, you know, who's lecturing to you, as opposed to like, yeah, this is stuff I found here. Let me show you or whatever. Hopefully they get the audio sorted out.
Chat saying no sound.
No sound from me?
Oh, it's weird that was the first anyone said about it.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
it seems like they're having some issues here.
Basically, all these globe Earth skeptics, they can smell there's something fishy going on with these globe Earth images, or, you know, just a lot of information coming out of NASA, but their explanation for these discrepancies requires way too many assumptions.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Even if there is something being fiddled with, you don't know for sure what that is, right? I could conspiratorially argue that the composite images from NASA are because they don't want you to see the like cloud creation machines that exist in the middle of the ocean. That's the thing they're covering up, not the shape of the Earth. But both would be just as wrong-headed in the sense that you are assuming the conclusion before you're assuming the conclusion of what you're trying to prove, in the sense that a cover-up could be covering up anything, but you're assuming it's covering up the thing you want to believe, right? So that's a good point, one that we haven't heard before from globe proponents.
Given all the other data that we are not getting from NASA. And I think it is so important to keep this moon landing charade going that I
hope they sort this out soon. If they don't,
partially
just gotta be
attributed
off
to a disinfo campaign. It discredits, you can discredit, in quotes, discredit any moon landing skeptic by associating us with globe Earth skeptics. As a moon landing skeptic myself, I can confirm that.
Oh
What
no,
are you?
he's a moon landing skeptic. Okay, they got someone similarly wacky. Okay, we got conspiracists arguing with conspiracists. This happens sometimes. In fact, I'm familiar with an instance at a flat Earth convention where someone who made a geocentrism documentary was there to debate against a flat earther saying, no, it's like you're wrong about the shape of the Earth, but right about the fact that we live in a geocentric universe, and like and then the other way around. Like sometimes this happens, and it is kind of funny, but it's weird to have this guy as the proponent for a global Earth model, especially if he's going to bring it up in the debate.
Kind of flat earther. It's usually the first thing people say when I state my position on the moon landing. Like it or not, ridicule has always been an effective mechanism of control. As far as I'm aware, there is really nothing to be gained by propagating the globe Earth theory. Maybe
Yes, very important. There is nothing to be gained by propagating the globe Earth theory. Now, globe Earthers will, like flat Earthers will pretend like it's a mechanism of control to keep you inside, but like, how does it really affect you? Day to day, most people are not affected by the shape of the Earth. This is why flat Earthers like believe that it's flat, because day to day it doesn't affect them. Because day to day they can behave as though it is flat and nothing changes. But there's no actual benefit. Like this would have to be a centuries and possibly millennia long conspiracy on a global scale with coordination from every country on the Earth towards this singular end of convincing the masses in an inaccurate model of the shape of the Earth for no discernible benefit, for no reason. It's a good point.
you can correct me on this. But there is a clear incentive for NASA to propagate flat Earth theory. It muddies the discourse and provides a convenient way to dismiss any skepticism about
Please,
or
someone do
hell,
something
where
about
the
this
billions of
guy.
tax dollars go. Bottom line, I think globe Earth skeptics are unwittingly doing the deep state's bidding.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah.
Oh my God, he believes in the deep. Oh my God, where did you dig up this guy? Okay, all right. All right, well, we're not going to get the best representations from the globe side.
All right.
All right, Guillotine, who are
It's
you?
my turn. Can y'all see my slides?
We cannot.
Yep.
Why did you say
Alrighty.
yes? We cannot.
So
Why
tonight,
did you lie to him?
I'm going to be presenting kind of two different sections. The
Or maybe
first
they
is
can, but it's
just
not on stream.
evidence that the Earth is not flat from your observation.
Okay, this is also an incorrect approach. You should not be arguing that the Earth is not flat. You should be arguing that the Earth is round. Those are not the same thing. This is the difference between offense and defense that I did not expect to be such a repeated thing that I have to go back to on this channel, but that's why we made the concepts document. So, yeah, like you should be arguing that the Earth is round. Part of that can involve debunks of the Earth being flat. Part of the problem is, especially with flat earthers, is that they're shifty bastards. Like no two flat earthers agree on what the world is like. So you can say, oh, the world can't be flat because obviously it can't be infinite in all directions. And the first guy that we heard argue for it would be like, well, that's a problem for me. But what's it gets it might not have any issues with it. He might go, well, I didn't think it was infinite in the first place. It's impossible. Michael Shermer said there's a deep state. Okay, I mean, sure, lots of people say things that are wrong. I don't really know what to do with that, Kemgao. What people mean by a deep state also varies a lot. If you mean, like, there is a bureaucratic state that actually runs the government, sure. If you mean there's a conspiratorial elite in the deep state that's hidden from the machinations of the rest of the government and is conspiring to the downfall of humanity, no, it's ridiculous. I'm saying that it's not so out there to say that. No, it is. I'm telling you it is. I'm disagreeing with you. It is absolutely out there to say that.
Four different things here. Can y'all hear me?
And people often conflate the like bureaucratic state. The like example I give, like, oh, the bureaucratic state. Aren't you saying there's a deep state? No. What I'm saying is that our government runs in mechanisms that are often invisible, not for some nefarious purpose, but because it needs to run. There are a lot of things that need to happen. You have to hire people, and not everything can be elected. These people are very findable, very discernible. What they're doing is banal and usually on the level. If they're doing something untowards, it's not like a mechanism of the state, right? It's them It's like them abusing their position or whatever. There is not a massive conspiracy of government insiders who are hidden from the rest of the state. Remember, part of the deep state conspiracy is that it is a group of people that nobody knows who they are, but are so powerful that they can wield the power of the government toward whatever ends they want. No, it's absurd.
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So first of all, talking about
Whoop.
we
Okay,
do
there we go.
not see Polaris from anywhere above the equator. You can only see it when you are above the equator. From southwardly of the equator, you can no longer see Polaris. And when you're thinking about a flat Earth, it doesn't make any sense that a star that is at the center of the night sky for the middle part of the world, somehow the outer part of the world, when they're looking toward that same center, they're not seeing the same star.
This is actually a very good argument against flat Earth. The problem is you should be presenting the globe model first. You have to. It is insufficient to debunk the flat Earth model, and it's very easy to give evidence for a globe Earth. But this is a very good argument, right? Obviously, there's no reason why we should have this observation that he's noting, that the person in on the left in the with the green arrow or whatever should see Polaris, but the person on the right with the red arrow can't, from the same for the same relative position. The only difference is like their relation to the equator, but as far as to Polaris, what's the difference, you know? Oh no. Now YouTube's getting to be an issue. Come on, please. There have been enough problems before YouTube takes issue. Oh man.
Doesn't really make much sense. But so observations of Polaris first. The second, rotations of stars in the northern versus southern hemisphere.
Another really good
Just as a
argument. And
quick
this
little
is
clip here.
actually, it's being presented as argument against the flat Earth, but it is actually towards a globe Earth. You can explain this observation very, very well with a globe model.
I don't know how loud that is, but
It's not really
basically
proof,
these are
but it's something that lines up with. It's an
Oh.
observation that lines up with the globe model that does not line up with the flat Earth model.
So these are observations of stars in the northern versus southern hemisphere, Arizona.
By
in
the
top
way,
left.
one of the problems with this, and this is why you should listen to the flat earther before you try to debunk what they say, is that some number of flat earthers say that the stars, like that the Earth doesn't actually move, the stars are moving, and so like there might be some cylinder of stars above the northern hemisphere that's rotating one way, and then a larger like area of the side they're just different stars and they're rotating different. Now there's no reason why it should be like that. It's complete nonsense. It is a post hoc explanation. It is an apologetic answer to say, well, this would disprove my point, so let me make up a reason why it doesn't. But flat earthers do that all the time. So
Left and Australia in
this
the
is why
bottom
you
right.
have to like
And as you can
get them
see in
pinned
the
down on this is
in
a
the
thing they
northern
believe. Let's
hemisphere,
disprove that, and you can. It's very easy.
in the northern hemisphere, they're rotating counterclockwise, whereas in the southern hemisphere, they're rotating clockwise. And so the difference in that apparent rotation would not be evident on a flat Earth. Next, observations of shadows caused by Mount Rainier. As you can see in these many different photos, Mount Rainier is a massive volcanic peak. It's
Oh, that's
located
interesting.
near Seattle in the
I think I
United
get what this
States.
argument is already. I'll let him say it. Though.
And so on clear days, the peak dominates the horizon and thusly causes this shadow where during the sunset, a shadow shows on the clouds. Something that wouldn't be possible if you have a flat Earth model where the sun is always rotating above the clouds.
Okay, he didn't explain it very well, but yeah, that's actually a really interesting example. Why should something above you cast a shadow upwards, right? Well, it would if the light source, or I'm pointing like off camera. So like if something is here, why should it make a shadow up here? Well, that means the light source is down here, which makes sense if this is a globe that the sun is rotating around the horizon, or well, relative to us, it looks like the sun is rotating around the horizon. It's actually we're spinning away, but same thing. That would make a lot of sense. But in the flat Earth model, which again, they might just say they don't think the sun works like that, and like good luck because they haven't agreed to anything yet. The sun basically has to be above and spinning like this, which means how could you ever get a shadow that goes upwards from a mountain to the clouds? It should be impossible. It's a really good argument. He just didn't flesh it out well enough.
And then lastly, we have videos of a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, where you have somebody. Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the part of the video.
Oh yeah, I mean, so this is okay. So what he's getting at is like there's a problem of like the sun's reach. You can see in the diagram he has on the right here. This is a massive problem for flat Earth of like how the hell is it day in one side of the Earth and night on the other if the sun is above and casting light in all directions. Like it has to be a cone, but the cone is shaped really weird and it's shorter in one direction. Whatever. There's a lot of issues. One of them is how could you possibly have daytime in the Antarctic for 24 hours? If the sun should be moving past it, or it's like certain parts of the year it exclusively lights up that area, or there are two suns. Like it wouldn't make sense. Again, a problem is it doesn't make sense without this issue. So they're like a flat earther will just make up a reason why it should be like this. That they didn't believe before you started talking.
Do you have somebody showing a watch showing that they're tracking the time throughout the entire day, and that the sun is there for the entire day? Which, if you have a sun rotating around a flat
Oh, they might
model,
just think
again,
they might just
doesn't
think it's
really
like
make much
a
sense how
faked
the sun
video
is
or something.
shining on only the outer rim, but somehow not in the center. Um, this is called Frozen South Antarctica 24-hour sun 4K. If you want to look more into that video. Next, just evidence that the Earth is a rotating oblate spheroid. So just trying to use the technical name there, basically that the
Photos from
Earth
space,
is
you obviously know they're just gonna like deep state NASA cover up for no reason. Okay, obviously that's not good. Structures that requires the Earth's curvature to be accounted for, they're just gonna argue that they don't actually. But like then you compound into the number of people on the conspiracy. Now every engineer who builds a bridge like this would have to be in on it. Like the number of people that have to be in on it starts to exceed the majority of the population. And you just go like, why? If most people know this, who are you even hiding it from? Let alone for a reason. And then I don't know what the results of a ring laser gyroscope does toward that
Unlike my
effect.
compadre, I do want to present at least these photos of Earth, many of which were taken by NASA. The first photo in the top left here, this was a part of a time lapse movie reel, which showed the curvature of the Earth in the. Hold on, I'm trying
I
to.
guess I'm thinking now,
Okay,
like, because they're gonna say, like, they're gonna do some conspiracist shit, and especially when it comes to NASA, because flat earthers hate NASA. They think they're like the number one perpetrators of the conspiracy, even though NASA would have to be only one group of hundreds that are in on it. But still, one of the things that I wonder if it would be effective if arguing against a conspiracist to say, before you can defer to a conspiracy, I need you to demonstrate the existence of it, but like not just gesture at it because it would make everything you believe make sense, but actually demonstrate its reality, then show that this is what they're doing. Flat earthers sometimes attempt this, but their demonstrations are nonsense. They're only in the context of, well, this conspiracy has to exist to explain how these things can occur when you already believe the Earth is flat, kind of thing. It's circular, but I wonder how effective it would be. Just say, all right, I want before you can argue, yes, there's definitely a conspiracy. I want you to demonstrate that we can know that conspiracy exists without deferring to the thing you're using the conspiracy to prove.
by V2 number 13 suborbital space
It
flight,
might not be that effective.
and
It's just a thought.
that was taken in 1944. The second picture to the right of that, just one from that's from 1966, is the first picture of both the Earth and the Moon from the Earth's orbit, December 11th, 1966. Third one, the one to the right of that, first full disk.
Yeah, and with one of these being from 1944, this is what I mean about this conspiracy would have to have been ongoing for a minimum decades, actually longer than that, because arguments for the shape of the Earth will predate this century. They go all the way back to like I think ancient Greece, maybe even older than that. It's possible that in China they had figured it out before the Greeks did. I'm not actually sure, but this would have to go back for centuries. In like 1944, remember, another group that flat earthers often think is in on the conspiracy are the literal Nazis. So at a time when the people at NASA, well, maybe NASA didn't exist, but the people who are taking this photo, if they're American, are literally at war with the Nazis. They're conspiring with them to cover up the shape of the Earth. Like, it's really weird, right?
Pictures of the Earth from a geostationary orbit, also on December 11th, 1966. And then the last three are first full disk image of Earth from space taken by a person, William Anders, on December 21st, 1968. Number five in the bottom left is the Earthrise image. That's
Something
December 24th, 1968. And then
this feels like
number
kind
six is from the
kind of a shitty critique for this guy. Is presentation does matter. Being a good speaker helps. I hate it. I hate it so much. When I did competitive debate, in fact, I was kind of proud of the fact that I would have worse speaker points. I don't know if I've gone over speaker points in competitive debate. When you get a result, it's not just who won and who lost. You also get notes from the judge, and they give you a speaker point value out of 30. The higher the number, the better speaker you were. 30 is supposed to be like you were. Perfect. Don't change a thing. Almost nobody gets a 30 in a round. And far more often than not, it is expected that the person who has the better speaking score is also the winner. That's not inherently the case, but it's just so frequently the case that a person is a better debater if they're able to speak better. It doesn't necessarily line up. You can be a poor speaker but have better arguments. And it's so much the case that on a judge's ballot, sometimes they'll have a little box that if to check where to say, yes, I intended to give the win to the person with the lower speaker points. It's that uncommon. And I used to be proud about getting low speaker point wins all the time. That said, like, it matters, right? It sucks, but it does matter. And this guy is, very monotone. Something he doesn't seem to have like a clear flow of where he's going. And you can do this even improvisationally. When I speak on stream, I haven't scripted this, obviously. I can speak in a clear way I know where I'm going, I know how I'm getting there vaguely, and I can speak in what I hope you will agree is a compelling way. It's something this guy could work on. It was generally helpful. I don't want to pick on him for it because I used to be worse than this. Like this is like this isn't like a natural skill that, well, I guess it can be, but like this isn't a skill that like everyone necessarily has. Sometimes you have to work on it, and it's not that big a deal, but I do think it hurts people.
Apollo 17 mission, December 7th, 1972. So all of these photos come before the development of Photoshop in 1987
That said, I do think his arguments
by
are very
American
good.
brothers Thomas and John Knoll.
And in the debate, isn't that what should actually matter?
Basically,
he's just kind of taking too long reading through what all these images are.
Compatriot
This is what I
may
mean
not
about presentation.
entirely, like this. While I understand the flat earthers might not like that, I do see these as evidence. Next.
So I actually don't hate bringing up the NASA photos. Make them announce that they're conspiracists. Don't assume for them that they're right about the conspiracy of NASA being untrustworthy and just skip that evidence. Say, no, here, this is evidence, and you have to have a good reason to disregard this evidence, and you don't. Your only evidence is the assumption of a conspiracy that you only think exists, because otherwise this would be evidence that disproves what you're saying, right? Like, you only think NASA is untrustworthy because they provide evidence against your claim. So make them say it. Make them be explicit with their conspiracism. It's not a bad thing to bring up. You just spent too long on it, and it was kind of boring.
Is just different engineering feats that took Earth's curvature into account when they were being constructed. So the Humber Bridge,
This is another one. They'll probably say no, they didn't have to
each
do that.
tower on the bank of the Humber is 36 millimeters further apart at the top than at the bottom, which is how they took account of the curvature of the Earth. Number two, the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge, because of the height of 693 feet, the distance from each other being 4,260 feet, the curvature of Earth's surface was taken into account. Towers are not parallel, but are 1 5/8 inch farther apart at the tops than at their bases. And then LIGO, so LIGO's arms are long enough that the curvature of the Earth was taken into account when they were being constructed. Over the 4 kilometer length of the arms, the
I
Earth
forget what
curves away
LIGO
by
is.
nearly a meter.
Oh, I know what LIGO is. You need to explain what LIGO is for these people. If I remember correctly, LIGO was an experiment. It was like the apparatus for an experiment built to detect gravitational waves. It's actually really, really cool if I'm remembering the thing correctly. If I'm not, you're just going to learn about gravitational waves a little bit, and that's a cool thing on its own. Basically, the idea is that if gravity exists in a field, which in physics every force exists in its own field, it's my understanding, then we should be able to detect waves in that field. The problem is gravity is an exceptionally weak force. As far as humans are concerned, it feels like it's not, but compared to other things, it is very, very weak as a force. And so, in order to detect it, you need a massive gravitational event, and you need an incredibly precise tool to measure it. So, the events they were trying to measure are like two large black holes colliding. Like, that's the level of gravitational event that they're trying to measure. And the way they tried to measure it was using LIGO, which was they built this they basically built facilities where they're built like this. There's a building and then two arms. If I remember right, each arm is like 3 kilometers long. And what they do is they send a laser from the building down each of the arms at the same time, and then they reflect back and return. What's going on there is if there is that, well, this is traveling at the speed of light, so we know how that they should return at the same time. But if there's a gravitational wave and there's a change in that field where, remember, where one, because of how the wave works, one arm gets a little bit shorter and one arm gets a little bit longer, you should detect a difference in their return time. Apparently, when they were trying to detect a time that is different by, I think, 1/100th of a second, they couldn't get any results. But they did get results when they were finding differences of 1,000th of a second, something like that. Don't like look this up because this is really, really interesting and super cool. And I'm probably getting details of this wrong. It's been a while since I heard about this. Um, and so that's what like LIGO is. And yes, it has to be absurdly precise because you have to detect a difference in return time of in to the magnitude of 1,000th of a second from like these 3 kilometer trip. Like, it has to be super, super precise. If you just build it wrong, you're gonna get bad results or whatever. And so yes, you have to factor in the curvature of the Earth because these arms are exceptionally long for what you're trying to do, and they have to be perfectly straight so that you don't have this issue. Um, so yeah, you should probably explain at least a little bit of what LIGO is. Maybe the Large Hadron Collider would be a better example because that is also an exceptionally precise uh, piece of machinery, probably orders of magnitude more precise than something like LIGO. And that thing is enormous and almost certainly has to factor in the curvature of the Earth.
So yeah,
And more people are
these are
familiar with
just
the Large Hadron Collider.
another just interesting examples that I thought. And then lastly, just the results of a ring laser gyroscope. So ring laser gyro basically works by shooting two lasers, which hit the mirrors, and given or when there is a delay in one of the lasers reaching back to the detector, um, basically that's how you would tell that there is a drift. And when you use these lasers, as famously Bob Nodell did in his 15 degree per hour drift video, or
I don't know
in
what
the
this is. This
Netflix
is kind of over my
documentary
head.
about flat
I
Earth.
also don't know why that YouTube video uses the Disney font. But yeah, without knowing what this is, his explanation isn't filling it in super well. So
He
I like what
showed there was a
I imagine most of the audience just
15
tuning
degree
this
per hour
out.
drift using a ring laser gyro. So yeah, that's basically it for me.
What do
My
you mean?
ultimate question
That's
with
it?
this stuff is
Oh, okay.
always just kind of why is this something that people get into their head? I don't really understand it in a time where
Oh,
science has advanced
so
so
I
much.
wasn't sure when he said so why. I was like, okay, there's a really good question you could ask there. I thought he was gonna ask why would this cover up exist? Like why, not just like what like why do people have the wrong idea about the shape of the Earth according to flat earthers? But like what is the purpose of the cover up? Asking why you get it into your head. It is an interesting question. It is not appropriate for debate, and your opponents are definitely not going to give you an answer that actually answers the question. They're going to say because it's true and we can demonstrate it and we can see with our own eyes. They're just going to like spout their conspiracism. They're not going to give you a reason why they got caught up into the conspiracy, right? So it's a reasonable question, but one you should probably explore like on your channel on your own time, not in this debate.
Much, and yet we still have what I would at least term kind of arcane views of the world. So yeah, that's the end of mine. Well, basically, sorry, my last
Mm-hmm.
point being that personally, I think it comes down to on the one hand, religion, on the other hand, wanting to be a part of a group that you kind of think of yourself as
Not
being
really,
different from the
but
system, and while that may not be true,
not only do I disagree with his reasoning here, I also think it's a really, really bad idea to say this. It makes it seem like you're just like, you're Christian, so you're crazy or whatever, and that's one, not true. Two, probably not what the speaker believes, and three, it just like helps the flat earther pretend to be spiritual. Like, see, they want to cover up the truth the Christians believe or whatever. It's like no, like um, yeah, I think this is a really bad idea
for
to say.
everybody, those kind of seem like the two primary reasons for me. But yeah, so that is all.
Malachi was the last guy. Malachi,
Thank you
I
very
want to
much.
say that the
We'll
last
definitely explore
globe
those questions
proponent that we heard, his
with
name was
the
Malachi.
flat
He did an
side
exceptionally
in a
good
second.
job.
First, I just want to tell everyone thank you very much for coming out to check out this debate here, Modern Day Debate. Make sure you.
I'm looking at this like ad for an upcoming debate they have here: creation versus atheism. That doesn't make any sense as conflicting. Like creation is not creation and atheism are not direct. Like atheism is opposed to the thing that makes people believe in creationism, namely the religiosity, the theism. But creationism isn't in opposition to atheism; it's in opposition to evolution, and those aren't the same thing. Yeah, that's a really weird topic. Yeah, it's
you
very
guys hit
strange.
that like and subscribe button. We are so close to 125,000 subscribers. It would be amazing if we could do that right here,
Are
right
they?
now.
How they doing?
Um,
Oh, they hit
don't forget,
125,000
if you
subscribers.
guys
Good for them.
want to see some debates,
I do like their
live,
channel, with the
including
exception of how they
Mr. Witsit
platform
Gets It.
Daniel Hakikachu.
Go
But
down the link
otherwise,
below,
I think
get your
I think
tickets
it's a
for
really cool channel.
DebateCon 4, November.
All right, can we? That's what I was worried about. That's why I didn't skip.
Team Flat.
All right, let's
The
get to
floor
the
is all yours.
let's get to the debate.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
Okay.
Do y'all see
How a biblical
this is
Earth?
pulled up
So
now,
it's
right?
a
It's
bold
my
start
slide.
to have the title of your presentation be a nonsensical question. What does that even? What do you mean? How a biblical Earth? Like, how is a biblical Earth possible? How is that the case? Like, this is just grammatically and intellectually just nonsense. Pulling off the literal worldwide
Slides?
deception. Yeah.
Is
So
there a way I
remember,
can
they have to
make
believe
the
in a
oh,
worldwide
minimize
conspiracy
versus
for some unknowable reason.
minimize?
And remember, they only
Did
think
my
that this
mouse
worldwide
disappear?
conspiracy exists because it would have to exist if they were correct about the shape of the world. They don't know that it's real. They believe a thing that's wrong, and the only way for that to be true is if also there is a massive global millennial long conspiracy.
Okay, anyway, I'll try to do it
between
without it here.
competing
Okay,
interests,
so our side
you
here
know, with
is
groups of competing
about
interests.
the flat Earth and why that is true. And so basically, my approach here with this opener does tie a little bit into my opponents here about how a biblical Earth lie can be pulled off. So it's pulling off the literal worldwide deception.
And
Um,
I'd like to note like how he's starting with the conspiracy and not with the evidence of his position. I don't think they actually have evidence. Not just in the sense that I disagree with it, but I don't think that any of them are actually convinced that the Earth is flat by any mechanism or by any even bad argument for the shape of the Earth. I think more accurately, they're people who are primed to believe in a conspiracy who happen to buy into this thing on their way to the thing they actually want to believe in, which is the conspiracy itself.
And so, to put it in context, the Earth scientifically is planar over water with the four lights observation and does not.
Hold on. We're actually getting a description of what the Earth is like, but also with a bunch of jargon that only makes sense to a flat earther, I'm sure. The Earth is scientifically is planar. Okay, so it's flat over water. So does that mean like the Earth, the land sits on an ocean of water? Is that what he's saying? What's under that? What's holding the water? What the hell? Four lights. What the hell is four lights? And does not move. Okay, so stationary is like a claim. Finally. Okay, well, he's just gonna read it out.
According to the MMX, the Michelson-Morley experiment, our shared reality, regardless of what a math or majority says, is
what a math says? What? What is? What did you? This is like this is grammatically incoherent, and I don't even, and because of that, I don't understand what he's trying to say. Is he saying that like no matter what math says, but he's saying a math because he's trying to like make it seem like nonsense? So like if that's the case, well, cool. We're arguing against the concept of math, which is really interesting because like how in the hell do you determine the things you think are true about reality? Like he's talking about Michelson-Morley experiments. These things use science and math. They do it poorly, but they do it. But you trust that? Yeah, it's not about they have to discredit these things even though they use them to believe their lies. We saw this a little bit with Del Bigtree actually, where he'll pretend to point to scientific experiments that prove what he's trying to say even though they're done very poorly, but then later go on to attempt to discredit the concept of experiment and consensus because he understands that it's opposed to his position. They believe exclusively the things that confirm the thing they already believe and will discredit anything that doesn't, acting as though it's a matter of principle, but it's just, well, that says the Earth is round, so I don't believe it. That's basically what is happening.
Is empirically still and fixed. We are on the ground, therefore we can access the ground and perform tests and experiments on the ground, impart conditions upon the ground, and etc. among our interactions with the ground and water. Once reality
we can go into the air too, my dude. Airplanes exist. Like, what are you talking? Like, he's acting like the only thing we can know is the ground because that's what we have to stand on most of the time. But like, airplanes are a thing, my man. Like and spaceships too. I know you don't believe in like NASA, so like that's why you don't want to say spaceships. But like, you can also stand on the ground and determine these things. It's such a weird thing.
And there is a mismatch betwixt the observed results and what is taught at public tax dollar expense and
Notice the public tax dollar expense. He only like that's thrown in there because what's most important to him is the conspiracy. If it were just false, it just matters that we're teaching a false thing. It's weird to be like at public tax dollar expense. These people also tend to be like libertarian types that like want to live in Ancapistan. I don't want to go into it, but like, yeah, it's yeah.
It is reasonable that one might ask who is deceiving, who could.
Notice the framing of these questions. It is reasonable that one will ask who is deceiving. What would have to make sense for that question to be reasonable? That there is some person or group that is deceiving, and we can know who they are. He's already assuming that there is a deception happening, and that there's some group doing deceiving. We should find them out. Not is there a deception? We're not asking that question. He's uninterested in that question. To him, that question goes without is answered before you ask it. But it's a question you have to ask. This is what I mean about like demonstrate the conspiracy exists before assuming the conspiracy and then asking, well, then who are the conspirators? Then how could trusted elite dupe? Assuming assuming that trusted, well, first of all, elite is a dog whistle, but assuming that there is a deception happening, there is a dupe happening, and that elite are doing it, and like how could they possibly, then you can ask the question. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And then why would they lie? We're
How
assuming
could
they are
trusted
lying.
elites dupe, and why
Whoever
would they
they
lie?
are. In this case, it's
Um,
elites.
So, our
I'd put money that
experiments
this guy's a
show,
JQ, by
and,
the way.
and relativity confirms a stationary Earth. We observe flat water over open bodies. So then you get to this conspiracy component of it, which is real. There has
He
to
says
be.
you get to this conspiracy component of it, but notice he's already started. The title slide had it, and the questions he just asked assume it. But notice he said nothing about actual evidence for the flat Earth. It's just straight to the conspiracy. You could also probably spend hours looking at the images he has on this slide and finding the wild fucking conspiracism that's built in there. You can already the one that catches my eye is I knew this guy was a Jewish questioner. I fucking knew it. And he shows it to me immediately. If you look in the top center image, there's a upside down triangle with the pyramid on the back of the US dollar to make a Jewish star. It's because these people think the Jews are doing the elaborate cover up and that they're the elites. That's what I meant about elite being a dog whistle. It's like it's the Jewish elite deceiving the world for their nefarious he wants to believe in a Jewish conspiracy. The flat earth just fell in after that. Is my bet.
Someone is lie. So the first thing is who is deceiving. And so anyone who knows what the science demonstrates, yet claims
that he won't tell you. Anyone who knows what the science demonstrates, but I won't say out loud.
The globe is deceiving. Honest people are not deceiving. Honest people who sincerely think
deceiving.
They know, quote unquote, the earth is a globe are not liars, deceivers, or malicious in any sense. Humans could lie to one another on a lesser burdensome claim and rip people off to effect. The one who stands to gain from lying about the shape of the world.
Who stands to gain? The one who stands to gain would be the one who's like, but who stands to gain? What gain is there? He hasn't even suggested that there is a gain until this point, let alone stated what that gain is, so we can determine who it is. But it's just assuming the conspiracy. He already wants to hate Jews, so he's building the conspiracy that justifies it.
Would be evil, and if one believes a particular figurehead of evil, that loser of an entity stands to gain from a.
This is very small, but like we're already picking on grammar. Fuck it, this guy's an anti-Semite. Like I don't care about picking on him for stupid shit. He's already like demonstrated a poor grasp of grammar. He spelled loser with 2 O's. All right. It's pretty telling when you're like, oh, you losers, I can't even spell.
A lie of such a magnitude, especially if they are trying to be like a creator in the sense of owning their own cosmology. They might even put their number as a signature of their cosmology. The plumb bob upright of an angle is 90 degrees. If you subtract the Earth's 23.4 degree tilt, you get 66.6
now we get
degrees.
like the meat
Earth's
of how
orbit
conspiracy
of the
matters.
sun
The decoding
is at 66.6 thousand miles per hour, and there is 0.666 feet of curvature per mile traveled upon an oblate globe with an equator of 24,901 miles of circumference.
Wait, if a curve drop per mile. I don't even know if these numbers are accurate, but what would it matter?
Those are their models.
There's only something special about the number 666 if you believe the like Christian derivation of that. If I understand, that's also not like biblically Christian. This is like Christian fan fiction over the years has eventually developed an interest in this number being the number of the beast. Like this is not like biblically derived. It's like, you know, fanaticism derived or something like that. But there's nothing special about that number. Nothing whatsoever.
So here you have a King James Bible verse, which does
also,
say,
by the way, some of these numbers, like the Earth orbits the sun, like some of these measurements are not done in feet or in miles, like he's just displaying here. They're done in the metric system. So, in what sense are you like are you demonstrating your allegiance if the number is just different because you use a different measurement system? It's only if you translate, if it's only if you convert it, and then also do some rounding, because I would bet money that the Earth orbiting the sun is not at exactly 66,600 miles per hour. Maybe it's like 66,621 miles per hour, but that doesn't help him. So we round, you know.
Uh, and we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. So there are people in positions of power, is the claim. And so I can't really get rid of these side boxes on my screen, so they're like
Mm-hmm.
all of our pictures are in the way. But I have here kind of some pictures laid out. So
Yep.
you have NASA, which actually looks like a snake's tongue. And if you look at a cursive,
Is that what that image is? Oh my god, no it doesn't. Oh my god, no it does not. That's just not true at all. But even if it did, even if it did look like that, I just disagree with that being a similar image. But even if you think they are similar, and lots of things look like lots of things, and snakes are only bad if you assume a Christian worldview,
T, that
and also
actually
not even that necessarily. Like snakes, it's only the Garden of Eden story, which Christians have come to believe the snake was Satan, but isn't in the story. It was just a snake. Jews certainly don't believe that. They don't even have a concept of Satan. It was just a snake, you know. I don't know.
looks like a cursive T a little bit. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but that does give you an
It's a
anagram for
mega
Satan, which is Satan. If you look at the dollar bill symbol next to it, and you spell out, you draw this triangle pattern. You capture the eye, which is a religious symbol of evil people, and
A
some
religious symbol of evil people. He means Jews. He means Jews. He means Jews. Um, but he's not willing to say it because he understands how that comes off. Notice, he wants to talk about the people who are deceiving being evil. You're literally going out of your way not to say what you believe in a way that's really obvious too.
evil people like Satanists and Luciferians, and then it points to Mason, and it's kind of more known now that DC was set up by Masons. There's a pentagram and everything, the obelisk and all that, which actually right next to that picture, I do have a picture of the obelisks. There's one in London, one in
Obelisks are a thing that have existed for thousands of years, and
DC, one in Rome. These are city-states separate of their country, but they rule over the people. Down underneath the NASA
What?
logo with the snake, you have a picture of the Rothschilds. They're a banking family
The Rothschilds, a banking family. He's talking about Jews.
who they party pretty strangely. That's their house party from 1972. And they get into some stuff with the goat you can see there. They have bird cages and whatnot.
It's almost certainly not true
Dismembered
at
baby
all.
dolls. They're dolls, but they're on the tables scattered about. And you can see right next to that a picture of Will Ferrell, who is in horns, antlers, white. There's that creepy girl with the mask on his right. This dude's covered in blood with a bunch of people in masks and cloaks behind him.
What?
And underneath that picture of Will Ferrell, you see another picture of Will Ferrell. And what that is to the left, he's at an event hosted by Marina Abramovich. She is there speaking at the Rothschild Foundation lecture. And so she is promoting these art parties and stuff. These are elite, powerful social influencers of our culture. So to the
I
right,
want to note, because he said it in such a disconnected way, that the elite, powerful, people of our culture who control everything are the Rothschilds and Will fucking Ferrell, the C tier actor, this guy, oh yeah, people know who he is, but by no means a mega ultra rich, powerful, awesome actor dude. He's a dude. Uh I would I don't know if Will Ferrell is Jewish, but the fact that he's here makes me think that he might be. And that's why this guy cares.
of Will Ferrell, you have Marina, of course, holding something with horns, some sort of bull. To the right of that, hopefully y'all can see it. It is
Also, why
Jay-Z.
are horns bad? They're just horns. They're bad because Christians associate it with Satan, but there's nothing inherently wrong with horns.
Dancing with Marina Abramovich, and under that picture is him wearing a shirt that says "Do what thou wilt." So to get further into that, how this gets here
Oh
is
my
in the
God,
middle
he's
of this
just
screen on
taking
the
us on the
top, you have
conspiracy
probably
trip.
the biggest loser who's ever existed. That's the Baphomet. There are, regardless of anyone's views of religion, if you're Christian, if you're atheist, if you're Buddhist, there are people out there who do worship a devil and do believe it very sincerely. And so then to the right of that, you have someone who
Okay, we're
was a
just gonna
very
say that. All right.
high-ranking Mason, Manly P. Hall, and he talks about when you get to the high levels of
This
these.
is the most unhinged glimpse inside someone's head I think I've ever come across. This is wild. I really just don't even know what to say. Like, obviously, there's no way we're going to be able to read all of what he has pulled up there from Wikipedia, but it's also like selectively highlighted. None of this is connected. We have here Baphomet and also like Manly P. Hall and also is that Buzz Aldrin? Like, what is happening on this slide? And in his brain, in this guy's brain, it makes sense to put these things together.
Degrees,
Oh my
you are
God.
going after the seething energies of Lucifer,
Well, I did not expect this
which
to
is
be
the
this
light bearer,
entertaining.
the
We stumbled
deceiver of the
on gold
world, who
here.
would be able to pull off this sort of a deception. And underneath that, you get Buzz Aldrin, who is a Mason. And actually, too, I have a little picture there of Buzz Aldrin. He was actually at the last Bunny Mansion. I don't like that company, but he was at the last party that was ever held there. A very damaging place to a lot of men and males.
What?
He was at that party, probably hard to get there.
He was at a place for these people I don't like. That means he's evil. And that thing I don't like is a thing that's apparently bad for men. I think he's talking about Playboy because he's talking about Bunny Mansion. That's got to be Playboy, right? You could say a lot of things about Playboy. I think bad for men comes way further down the list than bad for women, right? That's really, really weird. This guy's probably like thinks porn is the devil or whatever. This guy's fucking insane. So like, I'm guessing he has some like weird thoughts about that. It's also just kind of telling that like it's like, oh, it's bad for men, but like it's so much worse for women. Why do you not care about that? I don't know.
As in later, with some of this other stuff. So if you go to the left side, you have of the Baphomet, you have Jack Parsons, who, well, actually in the picture, that's a Lester Crowley, who wanted to be called the Baphomet 666, wanted to be the most wicked person ever, did a bunch
guy
of vile
wanted
things, has written books
things?
about terrible things. And he actually taught Jack Parsons, who started Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is a part of NASA. And it says right
here.
Okay,
I want to show you the connection. This is a guy. He existed, had some wacky ideas. He was a teacher to this one other guy. Now he says he taught this guy. Taught him what? Was he just like his literature teacher in school? Was he like a personal mentor? We're not going to talk about he taught this. I wouldn't be surprised if like this Jack Parsons guy went to one lecture given by this guy kind of thing. This guy, the wacky dude, taught at a school, and Jack Parsons was a student at that school after this guy retired, so he was taught by. It's the connection is probably a lot more tenuous than even it seems. And then, so this wacky guy doesn't actually matter, except for his connection to this other guy, who started JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories. They just make they make spacecraft and aircraft. That's the thing they do. They're engineers. They don't have anything to do with actually traveling to space. They have nothing to do with a globe Earth conspiracy. But JPL produces the stuff that NASA uses. Therefore what? Like notice how wacky this connection is. It's like this guy believes things that I think are evil, taught this other guy who founded a company who makes stuff used by people that I think are doing a conspiracy. Coincidence? That's literally what this guy's saying.
Here, Jack Parsons studied in the bottom left there. He was a Thelemite occultist, which was started by Lester Crowley. Under there, too, you see the Beatles, who actually had a Lester Crowley in their album artwork. And you see today, Lil Nas X has the Satan shoes.
Oh, yeah, let's not forget the people who are in on it. Lester Crowley, Jack Parsons, Lil Nas X, the Beatles, Will Ferrell, the elite controlling group of society. What? Like, I don't even know what deranged kind of thinking could lead you to think that these are the people who have outsized control over government systems and education and all this, like completely ignoring governments, educators, like completely ignore all of that. No, it's Lil Nas X, this one wacky dude from what looks like the 1900s or something, and Will Ferrell. Those are the people, the elites controlling society.
Blood, which is a witch spell. The pentagram, the Bible references.
By the way, Lil Nas X, the reason why these people go getting nuts about him is because they took the bait that Lil Nas X intentionally made for them to take. It's kind of funny. He made a video where he depicted himself like getting casted to hell, and for being gay. By the way, that's the thing. Like, it's a commentary on how his sexuality is perceived, like being cast into hell, having sex with the devil, and then like dethroning him. The whole point is that people like this guy who presenting will cast Lil Nas X as this demonic figure for being who he is, and this guy's like, well, you are though. Like, he just like, yes, and we're right to do it is the response here.
To the left of that, you see Warner von Braun, who started NASA, Project Paperclip. He actually has a biblical reference on his tombstone to literally cap him off.
We've gone over what that inscription is.
In the bottom right here, you also have a picture of the 3 astronauts in the Apollo mission.
This is also like completely off topic. Just as a reminder, like, I'm having fun indulging in the nonsense of the conspiracy, but remember, we're here to talk about flat Earth. He is at most pointing to the unsavory nature, in his view, of people he believes are in on the conspiracy. Not even like that there is a connection with them, or that this conspiracy exists, or anything that connects the conspiracy he thinks exists to flat Earth, like cover up or whatever. Just like, this is a conspiracy I think exists. Aren't these people weird and terrible? That's it. That's what's happening right now. Just completely unhinged. Maximally detached from reality. And now YouTube's gonna have a problem because I paused for 3 seconds. Come in. Just let me listen to the insane guy with the tinfoil hat.
They just accomplished the greatest thing in mankind's history.
Honestly,
and
he might
above
feel
that,
more
you see
sane
a bunch
with
of
the tinfoil
astronauts
hat.
supposedly on the ISS just flashing up a sign, which happens to look like some horns, which to Satanists, that's a real symbol for them.
It's the
I have here
like metal rock concept. This fucking guy.
This is Timothy Leary, who talks about the counterculture.
That's another aspect of conspiracism, is that the more you get into it, like, the more literally everything in the world and in the universe has to be a part of the conspiracy. They're in the ISS. They did a hand gesture. It's signaling their interest in the conspiracy because they did the, like, rock on symbol. Even if there was such a conspiracy, why would that be a thing that they would do? Why not, like, I don't know, we're showing our unity and, like, look, isn't this cool? Like, why would every instance of a thing a person does have to do with this conspiracy? It does, because to him, the only thing in his life that is of any relevance is this conspiratorial belief. So to him, everything is about this. But for most people, like, even if you were doing this, like, you can imagine actors in a movie when they do their cast wrap up or whatever, they're taking pictures or whatever. They're not necessarily going to be like, let's put in an indication that we know this isn't real. Why not just be like, oh, we just are friends and we're having a good time or whatever?
Total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
What is he talking about? What is this? What does this have to do with anything?
Right. War's detestable.
I even lost track of what he thinks the relevance of this is, let alone what's going on.
It started 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves,
So there he says it, do what thou wilt, ties it to Aleister Crowley, and then here we get Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, who gives this speech. Cryptic.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, members of Congress. fellow astronauts, ladies and gentlemen. Wilbur Wright once noted that the only bird that could talk was the parrot, and he didn't fly very well.
What does that have to do with anything?
So I'll be brief. This week, America has been recalling the Apollo program and reliving. We've only completed a beginning.
What is happening? What is happening? I could
Today we
follow
have
some of the
with us,
madness, but this is
a group of students among America's
defying
best.
my ability to comprehend.
To you, we say we've only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief.
Okay.
Those challenges are yours.
So there you
What?
have Neil Armstrong talking about compared to a parrot, birds that are known for talking, not for flying. So saying you went to the moon rather than flying there. He kind of did
Oh
like
my god, that's what he took from that? The joke was that Wilbur was like, well, if you can talk, it's like he was joking as though talking and flying were like things you could like alternatively put stat points into. Basically, he was talking about as like you can be good at one or the other, and since we can talk, flying is going to be difficult because he was trying to fly for the first time. That and like they were trying to figure out how to fly to make aircraft, just like we keep screwing up, maybe it's because we can talk. It was a joke. Like what the hell? And he took from that he means that that it's not real. We didn't actually fly to the moon. Holy shit! This is what I mean. Everything has to be conspiratorial. He could just be making a
talks
joke,
about the
even
parrot,
if it
and he
was a
talks about
conspiracy.
peeling back truth's protective layers, which ties in a little bit with my opponent and the skepticism of the moon landing. So then, how would they dupe us? For NASA to deceive us, they would need
Again, he hasn't confirmed that a dupe has taken place. That anyone is duping anyone. He hasn't even demonstrated any facts about the proof of his worldview, let alone that it's a conspiracy, let alone that the conspiracy exists, and let alone that like it's being done intentionally. Like, yeah, he hasn't confirmed any of this stuff. This is ostensibly here's proof of the flat Earth, and he's spending all of his time on the conspiracy that only would make sense to exist, and I'm using "make sense" as a phrase very loosely, if you could demonstrate your point, which you have preferred not to do in exchange for look at all the things I think about the conspiracy. Holy fuck, dude. This is buck wild. Wackier than I even thought it would be.
And space. They need to face fake space items, need good, honest, hardworking scientists to provide them with a welded joint for the rocket that scientists genuinely believe is going to space. And what are there any examples of their efforts?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, look, he's actually making arguments against this point. How much work and effort is being commissioned and done by people, according to him, that don't know that it's being made useless? Like, people made spacecraft and made stuff that is built to survive the conditions of space. These are no small engineering feats. This was massive amounts of work, massive amounts of research and development and quality engineering that went into all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, and the elites like made people do that for no reason, so that they could trick us into believing a thing that's not true, also for no reason, that they could just have easily have done without the pretense of pretending to go to space. Just don't pretend to go to space. Like, if there's a group of elites that's tricking people and thinking the Earth is round, why make a fake organization like NASA to pretend to go into space to pretend to prove the shape of the Earth, which is not why they were doing it, by the way, but that has to be the most important thing now because this is his conspiracy. You could just as easily be like, no, it's impossible to go to space. Just believe us. And by the way, this is across competing interests of countries because the Russians, or I should say the Soviet Union, beat the United States to space, beat NASA to space with Sputnik. And it's not like the USSR was out there being like, the Earth is flat, the Earth is flat. They didn't do that. And these were countries as opposed as countries could be without being in active war. But they coordinated this cover-up? Interesting.
So here you get the
first...
first...
Oh, and not just coordinated this cover-up at a time when McCarthyism was in full swing, and like if you had even tenuous connections to Soviets or Russians or communists, you were the force of McCarthyism was being brought down upon you, right? But these organizations could coordinate with the Soviet Union just fine. No one had a problem.
First image of the Earth in 43 years.
Not to imply that
actually happened
McCarthyism
kind
was
of right when flat Earth was really getting big. And if I actually flipped it there on the right of it, you can see on the bottom left of the original picture, it actually says sex, S-E-X, written in the clouds, which writing backwards is a part of witchcraft. And
what the
Parsons was a part of sex magic practices and was a witch. And
writing backwards is a part of witchcraft. I didn't expect that. I also do not see what he's talking about, or it says written out SEX. By the way, cloud formations can take lots of shapes. Sometimes there will be shapes that we think are things. This is a well-known thing in the pastime of watching the clouds and saying that one looks like a bunny. This is just a thing. We are pattern-seeking animals. Sometimes we see patterns when there aren't any. But even, I also don't see that pattern that he's pointing out. I don't know which photo it's supposed to be. And also, writing backwards is a part of witchcraft. I guess for any of you who've got, like, spicy history fanfic that you want to make, I guess that means Leonardo da Vinci, definitely a witch. And I look forward to people sending me their well-written or well-illustrated fanfic of it. Please and thank you.
These types of things. You also have NASA.
I would absolutely love if someone
clouds,
sent me a picture of Leonardo da Vinci as a witch. That would be
clouds and everything
choice.
In NASA's images. So you have cloud duplicates. You have Robert Simmons here talking about it's Photoshop, but it has to be. On the far right here, you have a picture of the Earth where North America is 1/3 roughly of the hemisphere. And then in the other one, it's the full hemisphere. So that's a
now we don't
size
understand
difference.
perspective.
And then on the bottom right, you also have the flat strips of data, which is out of the words of Robert Simmons' mouth. Those are flat data strips that they wrap around a ball. That's why they have gaps and everything too. So then, wait, they have to know to be lying. So is there anything like NASA would have to know that the Earth is flat to lie about and deceive? So you have
and
more
remember,
pictures.
These are people that would have to like. It's not merely enough for him to say that NASA knows the Earth is flat and are deceiving us. They have to say also that the NASA knew the Earth was flat before its conception, because it is if they didn't know that and then they sent people into space and found out it was flat, most people would have no reason to cover that up. In fact, even the conspiracy that he's claiming, he can't even come up with a reason why someone would want to cover that up. And remember, he thinks most of the people involved are honest people who would have no interest, who truly believe the Earth is round. So if NASA went into space and then saw that the Earth was flat, they would also have to all have been in on the cover up then. Otherwise, people would start saying, "Hey, we found out this thing." Why wouldn't they say that? They're honest people. But so it's not just that they're covered. They have to, from inception, totally and without exception, everyone in NASA needs to be in on the cover-up. Or at the very least, anyone who has access to the data to disprove it, which would be a huge number of people, and before they went to space to find it. Now, he might think they didn't go to space, but that also means that before they claimed to have sent people into space, they had to have been attempting to cover up. But why? Right? Like, it's not just oh, they found out, now they're lying to us. They have to have been designed to lie about it, which he could not possibly demonstrate.
Here of different shape and colored Earths. You have the Disney Imagination Arc. There's a lot of tie-in with Walt Disney, Masonry
What?
as well, 33rd degree. There's actually Club 33 at Disney, which is more secret society stuff. But you have the arch that rockets take that never go straight up.
This was supposed to be the part where you're like, oh yeah, NASA's lying to you, and like, and we know that they know they're lying or whatever. And he's like, Walt Disney, the Disney logo has a curve in it, and there's a club of elite people. What the fuck are you talking about?
Have this here, the balloons that NASA, they're the number one
Oh
user
man,
of helium.
that's just
and so they send balloons up all day long.
This is phenomenal.
They use the Saros cycle, which was developed by a flat Earth geocentric culture, and so that's how they predict their eclipses. And then you have technical, complicated documents that need to be accurate, and they use a flat, non-rotating Earth in their technical documents.
I promise
very
you they
complicated mathematics, so it's probably not.
If it were that discernible, that's the other thing. It's like, this is such a thorough conspiracy that, like, at this point, millions of people have to have been in on it over time, if not even right this moment. But it's so obvious that this guy, who definitely doesn't have any of the educational background to read these really complicated papers, can just look at them and be like, oh yeah, they say it right here that they assume that it's flat and whatever, because they know it is. Like, it's discernible by literally anyone, but it's been covered up by millions of people for centuries, and this idiot sitting at his computer figured it out. Like, okay.
Simplification purposes. And then let me see here. It's not letting me.
And isn't it wacky how all the anti-Semites all came to this conclusion and figured it out?
We're pretty far into it, just so you know, brother.
Yeah, you're leaving like no time for the other dude, and you wasted all of this time talking about nothing.
Can move on to Witsit's opening.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
He's like, no, I'm not done talking about nothing. Let me go.
Stuff here, you have the ISS. This is Don Pettit. I could play it, but it's him saying that it would be a pain to go to the moon. We don't have the technology. We destroyed it. Here's parabolic flights. It's one option how they fake weightlessness. Here is something I will play that shows a clear wire being pulled by this astronaut flipping in the air. He has this thing sticking out right here, gets pulled and pulls back towards this guy here with the military shirt, which also goes into up here. Military is in the in NASA and in the government, and the
military is in NASA and in the government. Wow! All right.
I'd go to the, and then so efforts of assisting the public, NASA can make it rain, and we have
again,
droughts.
Even if he could demonstrate that there's a NASA conspiracy to cover up something, he can't demonstrate what they're covering up. He can't demonstrate the shape of the Earth, irrespective of that. And even if they were covering something up, that doesn't prove that the Earth is flat, right? Like, the conspiracy has to exist for him to be right, but the conspiracy existing doesn't prove that he is right. It's a necessary condition, not a sufficient one.
Wildfires, but we use weapon weather warfare through
Operation
is this
Jewish space laser shit?
There's NASA's budget in the corner, so we give them all this money. They don't put the fires out, and if anyone
NASA's job isn't to put out fires. What? Does this guy think that NASA is firefighters?
U.S. Code 50 U.S. Code 1520A, that talks about how they're able to actually test on us and experiment, do stuff without our consent, just as long as they call it
completely unrelated
research.
But remember, it's just once you start believing one conspiracy, the next one gets that much easier. So yeah, also NASA's experimenting on us apparently. Can't demonstrate what kind of experiments or how they're doing it or what it is. Like, like I misread this law. That means that's definitely happening.
And so why the lie? Basically, we are created, we are special, we are loved.
Can't demonstrate
our creator,
any of this, by the way.
Built this place for us, wants us to be polite towards one another, have a relationship with him and with one another where we are respectful, kind, polite, decent. We don't treat each other like animals, like some are superior. These types of things.
I love that this guy's like, we don't treat each other like animals, like some are superior. Literally just spent the last 10 minutes going off on an anti-Semitic conspiracy where he thinks like Jews are evil who want to control people and like they need to be stopped. Like literally just hates Jews, you know?
Like things don't matter. Things like quality of life would change and everything. I can get more into this later, but it's
completely irrelevant.
It's not about money. It's not about control. It's about your soul, and it's about the Bible and the.
Like he's pretending like this is a reason, but what is the actual like? It's about your soul and it's about the Bible, but like, how does convincing people that the Earth is round have any impact on their soul? Even for Christians, like different denominations have different requisites for like what it means to be a Christian and whatever, and they have different beliefs of how to get into heaven. Not a single one that I'm aware of is like, oh yeah, you have to believe the Earth is flat. Some say the most common one I've heard is that you have to believe in Jesus Christ being the Lord and Savior. But there are also denominations that believe through good works you can get into heaven. But neither of those have anything to do with believing in the shape of the Earth. What would it have to? Why would this be about anything? You could do good works and believe in Jesus as the Messiah, and believe the Earth is round. So what impact on your soul is there? He'd have to believe that to be a good Christian, to like get into heaven or whatever, to like for your soul not to be damned to eternal hell or whatever, that you have to believe that the Earth is flat. Why?
The Creator, and how much the Creator loves us so much that He sent His only begotten Son.
Oh, and yeah, and this is with
die.
a thought like, oh yeah, God sent His Son to die for our sins. So even if we sin, like that has been atoned for by the vicarious atonement of Jesus. Now, I think that makes no sense personally, but this guy clearly believes it. So he's already like Jesus died for our sins, including the sin of not believing the Earth is flat, which is apparently a sin. And so it's important for them to convince us that the Earth is round, so that this way our souls won't go to heaven, like we'll be damned, even though that's not a tenet of any branch of Christianity to need to believe in the flat Earth. Yeah, it's just complete nonsense, even in his worldview.
And so we have defeated death. So Austin, I really crunched you on time there, but
wait, suicide? Oh my God, I didn't realize how unhinged the slide is. We should read it out. God made special creation. God made us. God loves us. God sent His Son for all our sin. Evil wants you to know nothing about the Bible. By the way, you can know things about the Bible even if you don't believe the Earth is flat. By the way, like the shape of the Earth in the Bible, you can read it as poetic and still believe it, right? Even rendering it as a fantasy of stories. So he believes like it's an atheist plot, or like to like, oh, if you believe that things are wrong in the Bible, you'll stop believing in God. But like, you can just believe it's poetic or metaphorical. A lot of Christians are devout Christians who believe the Earth is round and believe that it's just metaphor or allegorical depictions. We all become more special, understand the nature of where we live. What? Might it become harder for people to want to go vanquish someone's soul if they know God is right above them watching? Again, this isn't a conspiracy. He hasn't even attempted to demonstrate that this is a conspiracy to get people to not believe in God. It's only to get people to believe the Earth is round. The connection even here is nonsense. How about those non-death sins like lying, cheating, stealing, etc., with the Creator weeping above you with each choice? This is also like it would be bad to do these things only if someone was watching you and didn't like it. Whereas for the atheist, especially an atheist humanist, these things are wrong because you're hurting people. It doesn't matter if there's a creator watching you. This is the school of thought that something is wrong if and only if an authority would take issue with you doing it. Suicide could plummet. What? Why would that have anything to do with anything? Like, oh, people believe the Earth is flat? No more suicide. I guess life's worth living. What? Better quality of life? How? Better distribution of resources? What does the shape of the Earth have to do with that? Maybe more time free to live? What? And to be with loved ones? Yeah, once I stopped believing that the Earth was round, suddenly I had more time free for my loved ones? That belief changed the amount of time I had. Definitely didn't make me spend all of my time in conspiracy forums, and instead I'm spending time with my loved ones. I'm not obsessing on the internet over this. That's definitely not what I'm doing now that I believe in the flat Earth. It may be impossible for people to finalize their rationale with commit malicious. What? Whoa. Okay. Yeah, it's
please,
completely.
I
unhinged.
actually don't know if I can. Wait. Here we go.
All right, let's see if What's It Gets It has even a minute to speak. because this guy took all the time.
Am I still?
How do you find
there we
even
go.
crazier
Stop share.
flat earthers
Okay.
each time? How do they get wackier one to the next?
Okay. I can't tell. Did I just start lagging again? I think I just started lagging again.
Oh
Yeah,
my!
it looks like
This
you
guy
are.
is. This guy
Yeah,
is
I don't know how much of a headache it would be for me
insane.
to back out.
I feel
but,
bad saying that because like I don't have a better
I think
term,
we
but
did
like
pretty clearly
it
go
feels like
over
an
anyway.
insult to people with mental
It's up to you. What do you
mental
want to do? You
health
want me to
issues to
back
compare
out
them
and
to
see if
this
it
guy.
works again, or?
But he's
I don't know what
completely
happened.
disconnected from reality.
Kind of hoping it's gonna just catch up.
Okay.
Do you have an opening statement? Could we tackle that real quick, and then you could back
Yeah,
up
yeah,
after?
yeah. I'll keep it concise.
Yeah, you better. The
I
other
know
guy
I'm
took
delayed,
way
but
longer than the other two
so
even.
it's really simple. The default position, regardless of how much people want to fight this, is that the Earth is a stationary plane.
That is
That's
not
just
true
objective.
at all. That's actually contentious and not objective. So objective would mean true, irrespective of people's feelings on the matter. But no, a default position is not necessary. Like, yeah, I don't know. As far as the shape of the Earth, I don't know if there could be a default position. You might say that is the intuitive position, but intuitive is not necessarily default. You'd still have to demonstrate that it's accurate, and when there's evidence otherwise, it's not sufficient for you to say like that evidence is incorrect. Like you could be wrong that the Earth is flat. Again, what if we're like it's a cylinder that we're living on the flat face of? You know, like
So, the word horizontal literally comes from the horizon. We see that the oceans are flat. The horizon is flat. We see
we
that the
also
stuff in
see
the
that they're
sky
not,
moves
but
and
okay,
that we
that's
do
fine.
not move. And that's the default position. We see that everything in the sky moves around the Earth.
By the way, if you're gonna like take this level of intuitive thinking, that means if you're falling from some large height, like let's say you're skydiving, the intuitive position is that the Earth is approaching you. From how you observe things, you're not moving, the Earth is coming at you. Why would that be wrong? So every time someone skydives, they're moving the Earth further up? Or maybe that's nonsense. Damn it, YouTube. God, I think I paused too much. We're not going to get through this in the amount of time I actually have to go through it. That said, we saw the important part. This Nathan guy is... Whoo! Wow. We'll say he's an interesting fellow. We'll put it that way.
Central
Wow.
position for all recorded history. Now, could it theoretically be something else? Yes. Could it be a tilted, wobbling, spinning, revolving water ball in a vacuum of ever-expanding nothingness?
Notice just the phrasing
Sure,
to make it
in
seem
theory,
ridiculous.
and all of it's an illusion. Yeah,
But it's not actually.
but the burden of proof lies on the globe.
Incorrect.
One guy,
It lies on both of you.
Guillotine is a screen name, did claim some proofs. We'll get into those things because I don't have much time. We're already over. But
Yep.
simply put, contrary to popular belief, the globe has the burden of proof.
Even if that were true,
or empirical evidence,
the
and
globe
standards
model
of
has
evidence.
met its burden
And so
of
we'll get
proof
into that. We tested the Earth,
thoroughly.
we tested the globe. It's objectively not that, and people get caught up in the why would they lie. I don't think if your girlfriend's cheating on you, I don't care why she's cheating on me, right? Like I want to see.
Well,
the
no, it
evidence.
matters, right? Because like, if your contention is you think your girlfriend's cheating on you because that is the explanation for how she's been levitating 10 feet off the ground for the last week, like I would call into question like the fact that the reason why you think that's happening is nonsense leads me to think that she's not, and therefore the why goes into it, right? Like, or maybe that's a bad example. Like the issue with the conspiracy is like if there's no reason to do it, then we don't know it's real. Like it makes no sense for it to exist. And the existence of the conspiracy is how you are demonstrating the shape of the Earth, right? You're using that as evidence that the Earth is flat, even though you can't prove that it's even a thing. This is why it's an issue. Like I think I'm explaining this poorly, but I did it better during Nathan's presentation, where it's like, no. The why is really important when you're talking about the scope of effort being put in here. A better example than your girlfriend cheating on you, it's like you think your girlfriend is nightly taking a train to some town 400 miles away so that she can water one specific plant and then come back, and you're like, well, what does it matter why she's doing it? I just know she's doing it. No, you don't. And it does demand an explanation because it's such an absurd thing to claim that doing that for no reason is less likely than it just not happening.
that she's cheating on me. We'll deal with why later. So hopefully we get into the specifics of the evidence. And I think it's cool that Nathan kind of touched about some of the bigger things that people want to avoid. And yeah, why would NASA lie about so much? If
But
there's
you
nothing to
haven't
hide,
demonstrated
would be
that
the
they
better
are
question.
lying,
So
but
we'll get into the evidence,
you're
and we can
you're
go from
using
there. Sorry, I'm delayed.
the
I
like
don't know
why
that.
would they lie as a way to
It's
get
all
out of
good.
answering
we
the actual
heard you
question.
loud and clear, which is I think was super important here. So once again, everyone, if you want to see Witsit Gets It live in debate with no delay on stage, go ahead and get some tickets for that debate.
Oh, I was
4.
like,
We're
wait,
also
are they
doing a
just
crowdfund.
shilling, or not? I
Details
shouldn't say
for that
shilling,
also
promoting
in the
exclusively this guy's
description.
channel. No. They're trying to get
Yeah,
people for
Witsit, if you
DebateCon.
want
Okay.
to at this point attempt like a restart to see if you can be undelayed, by all means.
Yeah,
go
I'll be right
ahead.
back. Be right back.
Don't be alarmed, everyone. The overlay will go a little askew while we wait.
Okay,
right
let's
now,
try to skip ahead to when everyone's back. I know YouTube's gonna take issue with that because apparently skipping is a thing it has trouble with sometimes. Oh wow, it takes a while.
Is equal to 90 degrees or something.
I hope they weren't arguing this during this time. If they were, screw it, we missed it. I mean, I think we saw the most important part about this debate, which is how
The religious
batshit
angle.
insane
Mind
Nathan is.
if we drop the religious angle, because that's like a whole other debate. And
Oh,
yeah,
they have
no,
been
I
arguing.
just wanted to set that as far as like the
Fair.
conspiracy
Whatever.
aspect of it for people who question about like how could they lie about the earth and stuff. Like that shows a lot of cultural influence of like
Like, they were
satanic
actually
things and how
debating
it's
during that
crept
time? That's
into
really weird.
society.
so you just think they're just like evil,
Whatever,
basically?
we're just gonna pick it up from here.
It's been a deception that's been in the works for a very long time, and some very intelligent fallen angels. They're dumb for rebelling, but they do know things. They've been around for a
Oh
long
my
time,
God,
so
they're
they know
arguing
how to
about, like,
reverse
fallen
engineer.
angels'
That's why they can look
participation
at the
in
sky and just
in the
say, no,
conspiracy.
the sky is still and we're moving, when really all we see and experience and all of our colloquialisms and our terms and our day-to-day verbiage is sunrise, sunset. That implies motion. Abyssal plains, plate tectonics. These are things that indicate flat, indicate stationary, indicate a moving
Also,
sky.
no, those things do not imply that.
So how things rise
Also,
and
like,
set. It should be the
People,
earth turns to and
people's
fro.
terminology doesn't necessarily imply a fact about about reality. Like, people will sometimes, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of word choices that we use because that's how our language works, or that's how it came up. Like, people who coined the phrase sunrise and sunset probably believed the Earth was flat, but that doesn't make them right about it, right? Like, you can just as easily imagine a language where the people who were like determining what words were, or like however the language was being was coming into being, they knew the Earth was round, and so they had terms for the sun. It was like, oh, we have Earth rotation to sunlight or whatever. That's like what the word translates to. This guy wouldn't say, oh, that means the Earth is round, right? There's no connection to the truth of the matter, what people have actually called the word. But I guess this guy thinks this is a like centuries and millennia long conspiracy. So like they knew and they were in
our kind of like what Austin was saying, our terminology. Austin, are you back by the way?
Yeah,
Austin is back. We are at full debate power now. So yeah, thanks for coming back there.
I guess they were debating in the meantime,
Austin,
which I didn't expect them to, which is why I skipped
forget
ahead.
your super chats.
That
right? So
is
at the
weird.
end of
They
this
shouldn't
debate,
have done
we'll
that, right?
ask
This
our
is a 2v2
wonderful
debate to
debaters
just be like, nah, it's a 1v2
some
now. Go.
questions based on your super chats, all right?
Is odd.
Keep things
Yeah,
friendly.
Now, if it were me in the 1v2, I would actually find that easier than a 2v2. I have a tendency to have difficulty like working with. Well, I shouldn't say I have difficulty working with. I've generally found it easier to debate on my own and with my own strategies than incorporating a second person, especially if these people don't necessarily know each other. But it is, in a literal sense, you have two people. You know, it's a two in the like mental martial arts analogy that I keep going to. It's a 2-on-1 fight. It's just harder. You know, you have two people talking at you. To have equal time between all three of you would mean that you're getting outspoken 2-to-1. You know, stuff like that.
And let's get
two
back
people
to this
thinking of
open
counter arguments.
Austin?
Because what I was about to say was like, if we can
Okay,
kind
we're
of
just
all
gonna pick it
agree
up
on
from
a
here,
couple
whatever.
parameters, right? Like, let's try to keep our points concise and to the point for both sides, and then try not to interrupt each other, or like interjections and interruptions are different. I think we'll have like a very productive combo.
Oh, interjections and interruptions are different. Strikes me as the thing a person says when they want to interrupt you and don't want you to interrupt them.
Because everyone here seems pretty
But I don't know what
chill,
was
and
happening
so I
because
think
we
we should be
skipped,
able to
and I'm not
do
going
that,
back.
right?
I can't go
I do
back.
have one thing I want to make
I
sure we
can't.
all agree
I
on.
won't.
In my opening, I brought up that the globe has the burden of proof, as in
You did say
what
that,
we experience is
but
that the
you're
Earth
wrong.
isn't
Even
moving,
if like,
the
well, I
stuff
guess
in the
they do have
sky
burden of proof, and
moves,
so do you.
the horizon is horizontal, and the globe says, "Oh well, it's so big you don't feel it. Oh, it's so
I
big you
hope at
don't
this
see
point
it."
we've watched enough of these flat Earth debates to understand why the horizon being horizontal is nonsense. We saw that picture of like tennis balls are flat because we can take a picture so close to the surface of the tennis ball that the horizon on that looks flat.
Blah blah blah. And sure, it's physically possible, right? But do we
Not
all
just
agree
physically
with
possible; it's
that? That
demonstrated.
our default position with our
No,
experience and
absolutely
our
not. And they
observations
should not agree
is
to
that
that.
the Earth is a stationary plane, and that to substantiate that it's actually a spinning globe would have the burden of proof. Are we all in agreement with that?
This is some.
Yeah, sure.
No, do not agree to that.
Cool. Cool. So,
I don't know that I would.
Thank you,
I
why
Well,
not?
no,
Austin.
if you have the evidence to
Yeah,
like,
the
then you
things
should
that
just
I
present it.
presented in the beginning of my presentation were kind of that's what I was trying to get at. Just evidence that it's not flat from
This is okay. That's a bad argument, but like he is correct to say that no, the default position is not a flat Earth. What he's pointing at now is that he feels correctly that the globe model has met its burden of proof, which is true. It's just that the flat Earth model also has a burden of proof. The null hypothesis is not a stated position. It is simply to say, no, that's not the case. So if the globe model fails to meet its burden of proof, we can say only that the Earth is not, that we do not have reason to think the Earth is round, but it does not give us reason to think the Earth is flat. Again, what if it's concave? What if it's, I think that's what concave is, or is that convex? I forget. What if it's a cylinder? What if it's like shaped like Halo? There's a lot of shapes it could be in. We would have only determined that it is not a globe. The purpose of painting flat Earth as the default is to one, legitimize intuitive observations, which is nonsense, and two, to act as though he has evidence for his position, which he doesn't actually have, and three, to avoid making him prove anything about his side. We could, for example, disprove both the flat Earth and the globe Earth model if we could demonstrate the cylinder Earth model, right? I can't actually do that because the Earth isn't a cylinder. But if we could prove that the Earth is a cylinder, both of them would be wrong, and you would understand why the default position wouldn't make any sense. Why should we default to this? It is not. This is not a true dichotomy, and dodging the burden of proof is the only value that Witsit gets out of making his position the default. So no, don't agree to that. Guillotine was correct to push back on it, but his reasoning is just no, we've met a burden of proof, which he's right about, but it's not really relevant
your
to the default
observation. I mean,
position
it's very
claim.
clear ways to be able to tell that. I mean, I don't know. I see your point. I just don't think that the globe
By the
has the
way,
burden.
just because I can't help myself but appraise people as debaters, um, I think Guillotine here, I think his name is Austin, but I'm just going to go with what's written there. I think Guillotine has a lot of good instincts in debate. He seems to understand like what arguments he should make, where he should push back, what he needs to be doing, but it seems just kind of undeveloped either through lack of practice with it and or lack of like understanding the theory. Like I know a little bit more about theory than debate theory than a lot of people who do internet debates because I did the competitive debate stuff, and that's another way you can approach it. But like I think Guillotine, with like a little bit more like learning about how to debate, would be very very good at it. He's just kind of nascent right now, is how it strikes me. This feels like if I were still doing competitive debate, this would be like a new member of the team, but someone who has really good instincts. Whereas like Neat Pride, I haven't heard enough of to really get a sense. I think he has some kind of bad instincts, but he's also kind of a conspiracist. That might have something to do with that. And then the other two, the flat earthers, are just like so irrational that you'd have to like fundamentally rework how they think in order for them to be actually skilled and good debaters. They are good at what they do in terms of like the rhetoric of or I guess what's it Witsit is better than Nathan about this, but like they through practice like know some things that work, but not good debate practice, if that makes sense.
Burden of proof, I think.
I think he's saying
Like,
like
if you just
with the naked eye, like if
Yeah.
if you had zero education, you would look outside and be like, oh, of course it's
Yes,
flat.
but that is
Right,
not the same as a
exactly.
default
Default
position.
Like so, like
Position
your evidences would be
The intuitive position is not
substantiating
the
the
same as
burden
the
of proof,
default one.
right? Like
Yeah.
when exactly like when
You
you
can meet
gave those
the burden of proof, so it's okay.
exactly like when
No, you
you offered
can't.
proof, so you would be substantiating the burden of proof. We can go through them.
Because like again, like the cylinder Earth is like a great example here. You could say the default position is the flat Earth, but it would lead you to incorrect conclusions because you could reject something like the globe Earth if the Earth was a cylinder, but you would have the wrong answer. A default position ought to exist in cases where if you haven't met a burden of proof, you are more likely to be correct. You're not more likely to be correct in that case. You will simply have not believed one incorrect thing. You've just preferred an incorrect thing without evidence. Default positions tend not to exist for stuff like this. They would be more towards like things that have been demonstrated or things that like a claim being made in a vacuum, and especially like flat Earth versus globe Earth. It's not is this thing true is not the question. Is which of these things is true, if any. You know.
I would
See
say
if it
it's more
actually
just
does.
evidence. I wouldn't really call it proof.
Yeah, but
It's not. It doesn't
yeah,
prove the
I get it.
point, but yeah, it's just
Yeah,
evidence.
sure. So we can't prove the Earth's a globe, but
No,
that's
that's not
somewhat
what he said.
semantical. I get your point, but we can go through the evidences, bro. Right?
The
Because
evidences.
it's
Oh my God. I don't know what it is.
it's a-
Exclusively, the people that use the term evidences are nut jobs. I've only ever heard it from flat earthers and creationists. I wonder if it like comes from a specific source because I know Kent Hovind says it. But it's just kind of like if you hear someone say evidences, I think more likely than not there's some wacky conspiracist.
it's like a misconception that people that research this and come to the conclusion that the globe model isn't true don't know
No, he
these
says
things
research.
or
They're
haven't
not
thoroughly
researching.
understood them. So we can go through them now. I had typed them out as you said them, but I had to restart, right? But I do kind of remember what they were. I remember that you had
So this is what I mean about Witsit, like having the experience to know what he should be doing. Look how well he is leading the conversation. Now, leading a conversation is not a bad thing. It sounds like I'm saying like he's like it makes it sound a little nefarious. This is a good thing to do. I do this when we do. I did this when I interviewed Calvin, who works at Pico, California. If you remember that interview, I do this when we do These Are the Questions. Sometimes with Hexic. Sometimes you just need to guide the conversation to a good place. It's not a bad thing to be doing, but it is a thing to note that when someone's doing it, they probably like they're probably a lot more comfortable in the public speaking thing. They know where they're trying to go and they're trying to get us there. This can be a good thing if it's being used for good purposes, but this guy's like leading us to bad argument after bad argument. He's like, can we agree that this is the default position? Got pushback, said, oh yeah, so you know you can't prove the Earth is a globe, which isn't what anyone said, and now we're leading to the next thing. He's controlling the pace and the topic of discussion. That needs to happen. Like the topic of discussion and the pace need to be set either collaboratively or by someone. That's not necessarily bad, but it's in the hands of someone who's arguing for nonsense. It just shows a comfortability, even though he's not good at argumentation.
star trails, right?
It demonstrates a skill
I remember that you had a
that is useful in
gyroscope.
debate, if not
15
a skill
degrees
at
per hour
debate, if
drift.
that makes sense.
Right. So so that would be motion. So do you guys want to
24
start
hour
with
sun in Antarctica.
motion? You want to yeah, exactly. You want to start with the motion or the geometry first?
You can
'Cause
even
they're
see
two
like what he's leading the conversation to. If one of the globe earthers did that would be completely reasonable. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing in leading the conversation. It's just a matter of like it shows who has the most comfort and the most confidence about what's going on and getting through a discussion and like knowing what should happen. It just shows a familiarity.
primary claims, right? That the Earth is a sphere, and then that the Earth is spinning, or that the Earth is a plane, and that it's stationary. So we should.
By the way, whether the Earth is stationary actually doesn't matter at all. The geocentrists, by the way, some could argue that the Earth is stationary and everything is rotating around it, but it's still a globe. It has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. Now, as it happens, people who tend to who are globe earthers tend also not to be geocentrists because the number of geocentrists is minuscule. Even flat earthers tend not to, or not always geocentrists. But and so like mostly like it seems related. They're probably heliocentrists. They probably believe correctly that the Earth is in motion, but it actually has nothing to do with the shape.
Break them up; they're different.
And a flat
You
Earth could
guys
be in
rather
motion.
kind of cover the
Like we can imagine the flat Earth that's just rotating. Why is that impossible? It has nothing to do with the shape.
the geometry or the motion first.
And if I were in their shoes, my response to this would be to say, let's deal with the motion. Motion has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. We can imagine a flat Earth that is in motion and a globe Earth that is stationary. It is completely off topic. Let's go to the other thing. Don't even let them respond to that. Just say, let's go to the geometry, because that's actually relevant to the topic, and you've demonstrated why the other thing is irrelevant. If they want to go back to it, you can just say, hey man, this is off topic. Can we get back to topic? I
would just want to hear your explanations for certain observations that we have. Like,
sure.
For instance, why is every other celestial body round?
Gotcha.
That's
Yeah.
So
by the way, that's one thing that I find interesting about that question is the asking it in the context of this kind of debate. Remember, flat earthers do not see eye to eye on what their model looks like. You ask 10 flat earthers what their model looks like, and you'll get 12 different answers. So asking, hey, how do you solve for this problem of multiple flat earthers at once? You might get conflicting answers. Nathan, being a complete whack job, might say like, oh, we don't observe that they're round. We only ever see we see that they're we don't see that they're spheres. We see that they're like flat discs. We can't ever observe multiple sides of it. I don't know that I'll say that, but like he might. And then Witsit might be like, well, yeah, other things are, but the Earth is like biblically significant and different. Like you could get very different answers. And noting that they do not have a single model, they do not have a single idea of what's going on, also demonstrates, by the way, that it's not a default position because they don't have the same position. It's not one position.
So if you look at it from our perspective, it's that from our perspective, everything moves around us. So, if you know what relativity says, it says, well, sure, everything.
Relativity, by the way, I'm sure he's not going to understand, but also relatively disproves the flat Earth, partly because of the issue of stars. They would be having to move. We know how far away they are. Now, flat earthers might have to quibble about that to solve this problem, but for how far these stars are and how they move in the sky, the stars would have to be moving at such absurd speeds that they'd like exceed the speed of light. That would be detectable and relativistic, and that would be a huge issue for them. So for him to defer to relativity, this is what I was talking about earlier, that I claimed Del Bigtree does the same thing, and lots of conspiracists do, where they will lean on some scientific process or understanding to demonstrate a position, even though they have to throw out that exact same thing in order to hold their position to some other claim.
Looks like the Earth is in the center of the universe, but that's just an illusion. Okay, so from the perspective that the Earth actually is in the center of the universe, that would make it special and unique,
Earth, by the way.
Right?
Not
Copernican
necessarily.
theory says that it's not. Copernican principle says it's not special or unique. So, like, if the Earth, here's my question for you in response to your question, right?
Answer the question.
If the Earth is in the center of the entire cosmos, because that word's better, it means order, then what would make you think it should be the same as everything else?
So, one, why should it be different? But two, you haven't answered the question. Well, I guess he kind of has in saying like he just thinks it's different. I would reject to answer his question. I want to have Nathan answer because I don't trust that they have the same view on this, and I would also prefer to have the person who's one, more unhinged, and two, less practiced speak on this. Like, don't let Witsit cover for Nathan's insanity.
If it's the only thing
they're
that's
probably
in the
similarly insane, but
everything
Witsit
moves
comes
around
off as more reasonable,
what
given that he didn't
logic
have
is there
a
to suggest that
10-minute
it should be
screed
the same as
on the
everything else when
conspiracy.
fundamentally it's different than everything else?
Well, that's how it is in the heliocentric model. Like there's a sun, and the sun is the same shape as all the planets, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and
Can I ask
and the
you
it
heliocentric.
doesn't seem that crazy to me that, you know, every
It in fact seems a lot more reasonable that all things should be similar than that exactly one thing is different, right? This is something that kind of came up in the second debate with Matt and Daniel that we did, I think it was last week, where it actually kind of seems more reasonable that, or less reasonable, that there is exactly one of this unique thing and no others, rather than there is a population of it. That was in reference to gods, but in this case, like, why should there be exactly one celestial body that's flat, as opposed to they're all round? You can believe in a geocentric model and that the Earth is round. In fact, the guy who made that documentary does, right? Like, this heliocentric part has nothing to do with it. It's just a matter of like, okay, most things are like this. Why should this thing be different? Now he thinks like, well, it is different because it's at the center. You only really believe that because you think the Earth is flat, by the way. Like, this is again circular. But like, wouldn't it be reasonable for them all to be the same? Why should this be different?
body in space would be the same.
So
What about the
so
geocentric?
what you're saying is you're saying if we look up, we see the sky doing a certain or we see something certain in the sky. Things look kind of circular or spherical if you want to. So we look up and we see that. But you would also, if you're going to say we look up and see the sky this, you are wanting to claim the circular appearance of objects, but you're not wanting to claim when we look up in the sky we see it move. So you're trying to claim that we
First of all, no. Things that we see in the sky do move. The sky itself is an abstract concept. It's not like a sky. It's not a physical thing. It's not a dome over the Earth like these guys are thinking of it. Our atmosphere moves, right? Like, there are winds and stuff like that. There's constant motion in the atmosphere, and things outside of the Earth's atmosphere, things like the moon, the stars, the other planets, they move. So no, we think so. It's consistent. There isn't a one stationary thing that everything else moves around. In fact, it would be impossible to tell if there was a stationary thing. If once you start to understand relativity, this is another issue that relativity has with the flat Earth, especially with them saying things are stationary. One aspect of relativity is that you cannot tell if a thing is stationary or simply like, all motion is relative to other objects. So if a thing is, like, you can't tell if a thing is stationary in space-time or if it has constant acceleration. Uh, those two circumstances appear the same. In fact, this is an issue that came up with Witsit, because remember from the last debate, Witsit believes that the Earth is constantly accelerating upwards. Another relativistic problem. Eventually, that acceleration will mean the velocity of the Earth is greater than the speed of light. Now, he's claimed it's stationary here, but remember, to solve the gravity problem, his answer... Oh, no, wait, was it him? Maybe it was someone else. Like, someone was saying, like, it was constantly accelerating upwards, and that's how we get gravity. I think he was saying it was something else. I think he was saying it was like electromagnetism. Who was saying that it was accelerating upwards? We definitely encountered a flat earther that said that. I just don't remember
observe
who.
one thing, but we also observe the other thing at the same time. And why things are circular in the sky, or why they look like, if the Earth was purple and round, or and a cube, that doesn't mean that the things in the sky are purple cubes. What the Earth is below is not always what it is above. We see light
That is a
above coming from
reasonable
stars.
argument.
We don't see the Earth.
But at least you're getting them to commit to something. So this position from Neat Pride, it wasn't a good argument for disproving, but it makes them commit to a belief about the universe. They think the Earth is unique in this way, everything else is spherical, and now you have to justify why should it be the case that this thing is different from everything else. Now, Whitsitt has claimed, well, I believe we're like at the center and special, and therefore it should be different. But like, this is a series of claims that one is circular. You believe that because you think the Earth is flat, and you would have to, and that would lead you to having to explain why it's different, and therefore you come to it's special. So you only believe that because of another belief that you're using to justify it, right? But also, now you can have to justify all of those things. Okay, you think the Earth is special in this way, like, and it's special because it's at the center and all this stuff. Now you have to demonstrate that the Earth is at the center of the universe, and not through an assumption of it being flat. You have to actually demonstrate it because this is evidence of its flatness, right?
Emitting its own light, kind of like if you
flat
play
earther
baseball, you
often
play with a round ball, a round
uses
bat,
their
you round bases,
conclusions
rounded
as
batting
their
average,
evidence.
but the field itself is not
And the
round.
conspiracists generally
It's
does this.
you can't associate one to the other.
So, do you guys are you saying space isn't real?
No. The area above us where we see lights are real. Many astronomical observations are real. Many of them are not. They're
Right.
taken
Remember,
with-
he does not believe in like scientific observations. Generally, he believes in them only in as much as they confirm his belief. So there are some astrological observations that are real, the ones that prove what I believe. There are some that are not, the ones that don't prove what I believe. This is motivated reasoning.
RGB filters, and they're taken with
Have
spectrum data, right?
articulation.
Emission and absorption data, and then we translate them into images. And you covered that, and you had a pretty honest opener. But there's two ways to answer this question. One is, say I have a pool table over here. If I pick up the pool ball and I say, look, it's a pool ball. So since it's a ball, the table's a ball. If I say, oh, the light bulb is a bulb, it's spherical, so therefore my floor is a sphere.
No,
They're
it would be
unrelated.
closer to saying, hey, look at this pool ball. It's comprised of atoms, and so is everything else that we can observe, but I'm not. That's closer to what you're saying. It's not just we see a thing that's a sphere, therefore we're on a sphere. It is saying everything we observe is a sphere. You're claiming that this is one special exception.
Well,
Well,
no,
one-
because
one-
like I don't think the shape of space is necessarily spherical. I just think the bodies that are in space are all spherical. So all the balls in the pool table, those are all spheres, and then the pool table.
Yeah, that's
itself-
actually a good way of saying it. Like you're saying you picked up the 9 ball. It would be closer to saying I pick up the 9 ball and I go, this is a pool ball, and I look at the 8 ball and the 7 ball and the 2, and they're all spheres. I believe the cue ball is likely to be a sphere too. And you're saying no, that one's the only one that's a cube.
that would be space itself. So it's okay if
Yeah.
that's a different shape.
This is what
Also,
I'm saying.
do you
This is
think
where
that,
this is
like,
where
What is the
we're
shape
com-
of flat Earth? Like,
Hey,
is
time,
it
time,
like
yeah.
this?
we don't make a shape claim. Flat.
So see, this is what I mean. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The first flat Earth debate we watched, the guy said it was infinite in all direction. That is a shape claim. Different flat earthers do make different claims. Now, Whitsitt says he doesn't, but that's part of your model. You're claiming that it is flat and we can know things about it. So you just that means things like the shape are discernible. We can figure that out. Why don't you? What do you mean you don't make a shape claim? You don't believe anything about the shape of the Earth? I don't believe that for a second. It's actually kind of nonsense. This goes back to his default position thing, but obviously that's nonsense.
Description of a surface, and I would say it is a circle, and that the creator drew a circle. But
It is a circle. Okay.
I leave that. I leave
they
that
think it's a
separate.
circle.
Bro,
Okay.
you understand that you're conflating two models. So when you're like, but in the
Well, you don't present a
heliocentric
model.
model, but that's not. You asked why would they not be the same? Well, from a geocentric stationary plane position,
So
the
if
Earth
we
is in the
assume
center
I'm
of
right,
everything is
some
being
of my
homaged
assumptions
to the
almost
Earth
make
and
sense.
moving
That's what he's
around
saying
it.
right now.
There are lights moving around the central Earth. Why would we think the Earth is the same as everything else? It literally
Why
isn't.
wouldn't
It's
it
the
be?
only thing in the center, right? Like that's what I'm
Well,
asking you. Like
You're
if
assuming
you
that,
put
right?
yourself in our position, which in debate you have to be able to still man the other person's position.
Sure.
Yeah, so my response to this is yes, if I assume you're right, you would be correct, but that's not what we're doing here. You have to demonstrate these things to be the case. You would have to demonstrate that the Earth is in the center of the universe, which is literally impossible.
Yeah.
See each other. So why would we think that the Earth would be the same as what we see in the sky when
Why
from
should it be
the
different?
observational perspective, it's not. It's the
Well,
center
it's-
of everything else. So
Except-
it's special and unique. So if it's unique,
Except you can't demonstrate that.
it doesn't stand to
Well-
reason that it would be the same, right? Those are contradictory.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point. I don't think that necessarily because, well, one, I would question how you know you're at the center because it feels like
This is exactly what I mean. Guillotine having great instincts. Look at that. He immediately honed in on the central problem with what Whitsitt was saying. We'll see how well he fleshes out the argument, but that is a phenomenal instinct to hit on the exact problem. He found it instantly.
your statement's kind of like it relies on knowing that you are the center, which I
Huh?
would wonder how you know that.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Right? You could make the argument a little bit more in a clearer way, or you could be a little bit like be a little bit of a better speaker or whatever. Not that he's doing a bad job, but exactly, he found the exact right thing. No, I like this guy. I like Guillotine.
All evidence
He's a
ever.
little less polished than the previous guy. Like Malachi was doing a phenomenal job. I think Guillotine's doing a good job, and his instincts are phenomenal. Just absolutely great.
All evidence ever.
All
is
observational
that-
evidence ever. Yeah.
All
Is
observational. I mean, except for the observational evidence that's not that. But like, notice he's gesturing vaguely to evidence, but not actually presenting anything. This is the flat earther go-to. We are going to present no evidence for our position. We are going to say it exists though, and so you just have to take us on our word on it. Us, the people who who have conspiratorial beliefs, who think the Jews are orchestrating everything. The guy who's standing next to, I mean, Witsit didn't do this, but Nathan did. But Nathan, who had the fucking 10-minute conspiracy presentation when it comes to, hey, can you prove the Earth is flat? He was like, the conspiracy. That's completely off topic. Like, no, I don't trust that you are accurately pointing to evidence, especially when you refuse to present it.
that what?
Gyros.
That we're in the center. Your model claims that everything looks like the Earth is in the center, but it's an
Well, no,
illusion.
it doesn't look like the
That
Earth
is
is in the
the-
center.
that
In
is-
fact, there are massive problems with that assumption. One of the issues that came up with the geocentric model before Copernicus was the issue of epicycles. I think I've talked about this previously on the channel. But basically, if I grab my globe here, basically, if you assume the Earth is at the center, then like, okay, that means everything's rotating. So like the planets are rotating around the Earth, except our observations don't line up with the planets orbiting the Earth like this. Sorry, not rotating around, but orbiting the Earth. They don't line up with this. In fact, they take like really weird patterns. I can't demonstrate because I don't know exactly what it was. And the solution to this had to be like, okay, that means that each planet is basically on an orbit within an orbit, like on an orbit on an orbit on an orbit. Basically, like it's orbited, like it is the moon to another moon to another moon to another moon to a planet, and none of the other things actually exist. And so what they're doing is something like this. And that's what they had to do. That's what they had to come up with to solve the problem of these orbits not lining up with the Earth being at the center. No, the observations do not lead to that conclusion, and you have to do a lot of work to make them line up that way.
No, it claims that from every point in space, like in every single point, you could say that you are the center.
Right, so
Yeah,
you
Yes,
agree
that
that
is-
all
that is true.
observations
from Mars,
the Earth.
you would look like you're in the center.
Yes.
So you agree that all
So you could-
observations from the Earth make it look like we're in the center.
No, that's not
It's-
true.
what-
What he's saying is that because we exist on our own skulls, everything will always look like we are the center of everything. I do not see myself as being off center in the universe. I see it only from within my own head, only from my eyes. This is something that comes up in like video games, like you seem to be at the center of where everything, it's like everything loads around you, you're at the center, but in reality kind of looks that way, even though that's not what's happening.
No,
What the
if I
globe-
remember correctly, theoretically, you could say that from any point in the universe that you look like you're the
That
center.
said, also like no, there like maybe Guillotine doesn't know this, but there are observations that do not line up with the Earth being at the center. You might feel like you're at the center, you personally, but it is demonstrable. Like the observations are very clear that the Earth is not the center. Like one good example of an observation that feels like you're at the center, even though you obviously wouldn't be, is that the horizon is always the same distance from you. Yeah, like assuming everything is like that. There's no obstructions in the way, no mountains, no valleys.
what
Correct.
If you're like in the middle of the ocean, the horizon is the same distance from you, no matter which way you travel in all directions. Does that mean the horizon's moving away from you? Aren't you at the center of this circle? Like if you were to draw the horizon, it would be a circle with you at the center. Does that mean you're in the center of everything? No. That means that your observation puts you in a specific location. Someone who is observing you from the outside would say, no, you are on the edge of their circle.
What the globe is saying is that no matter what observation we try to make, we're only going to get the Earth is the center as the result.
That's
so
also
now
not
the
true. So like
flat Earth is
universally,
saying,
you
we
couldn't
interpret
tell
that
otherwise,
as saying
but
the Earth is flat, or is the center. That's the simplest explanation. Occam's razor and all that. So it's the globe that claims something other. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to make an observation that the Earth is not the center. What are they going to do? They're going to set up a device on the Earth and measure it again, and
It just becomes less likely, right? Because once you get to a heliocentric model, you have to say like the Earth is being orbited by the sun, which doesn't make any sense. Like I guess in a gravitational sense, both things are correct, right? The Earth and the sun are orbiting each other. But then like all the other planets are orbiting the sun, and then the galaxy with all those things, instead of us orbiting around the center, it's orbiting around. It's like it's this weird thing where like it's not the center point for most orbits. So like yes, theoretically it could be at the center and everything else is moving and not the Earth, but it's so weird that it would be not be the center point for most orbits with that being the case.
The Earth is in the center,
Yep.
apparently. Just according to a globe, it's an apparent position, but it's.
Right.
I guess at that point, okay. So I'm realizing now why the like orbit of the other planets isn't actually a counter argument to this, because it only is if they assume everything is rotating around the Earth and that everything orbits the Earth specifically, as opposed to orbiting other things that are orbiting the Earth or whatever. I would have the follow up then. Okay, so do you think the other planets orbit the sun, or do you think that they orbit Earth? Because that's demonstrably false, right? But that's also even off topic. Yeah, I don't know.
Demonstrate
It's completely nonsense.
reality.
They're basically taking.
It's
An illusion.
This,
It's an illusion. Like I have a
therefore
book
we're
right here by Stephen Hawking. It's called
That I
Stubbornly
keep-
Persistent
I have this book by Stephen Hawking that I completely misunderstood, and I'm gonna tell you my misunderstanding of it.
Illusion. It comes from an
Mhm.
Einstein quote. He writes a 3-page forward, and the whole rest of the book is Einstein quotes. It's a stubbornly persistent illusion that we're in the center of the universe. So we can all agree, because you guys have to agree if you're
we?
claiming the current model, which is that when
So-
we look at in the
No, we
sky,
can't.
any observation we make from the Earth makes it look like the Earth is in the center. And you're claiming, your model claims,
Center of what is a really big
everywhere
question.
in the universe would look like it's
Not
in the
of the
center
solar
because
system,
everything's
right?
expanding away in all directions. Well, you asked me, how do I know the Earth's in the center? And my answer is because literally all observational evidence ever shows
Wait,
us in the
wait.
center.
What
all
about,
observational,
the-
well, kind of, right? Because all observational evidence ever would also demonstrate that Mars was at the center if we were standing there. It's just a matter of like where you're standing. Do you think that you personally are the center of the universe? Because all observations would line up with that, except you two would argue about which of you is the center, because Nathan's observations would demonstrate that he's at the center of the universe, and Whitsit's observation would demonstrate that he's at the center of the universe. So where would you go from there? The only thing you can really derive is that we cannot determine if there is a center or what that center is. But you are making a positive claim that we know that the Earth is the center, and like where on the Earth? The center of the Earth, like the North Pole, because you guys think the Earth is flat. Is that the center? Is it you personally? You probably get different answers from different
background
illusion.
radiation.
and none of it makes sense.
Background radiation.
being the center.
Yeah, like there's a clear there
Mhm.
is a like position in the universe where it seems like that's where the Big Bang came out from. It's not like the Big Bang could have happened right next to us. Like we can
Ah.
see from the background radiation, or sorry, the redshift. I forgot what it's called, but
Microwave background.
I I think he's talking about the
Yeah.
cosmic
Different
microwave
things. These
background
are- yeah,
radiation.
so
If he
cosmic microwave
is-
background,
TBR.
I
and then there's
don't-
redshift. So cosmic
Oh, I
microwave
actually that is kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought about this. I don't think he's going to make this argument necessarily, but it is actually a pretty reasonable argument that if there is a center of the universe, we are not where that is. Basically, the idea is the Big Bang. So, okay, how do I start with this? So the Big Bang is like an expansion from a point of infinite, infinite density and zero space, if I understand it correctly, right? It's a massive expansion from a single point. One of the ways that we've tried to I shouldn't say that scientists have tried to observe or learn more about what happened during the Big Bang is measuring the cosmic microwave background radiation. What that is like, if you remember, light takes time to travel. So if you look far in the distance, you're also looking back in time, because you're seeing not what things are now, but what things were like when that light left where that was, right? However long it took. So theoretically, if you look far enough into the distance, you could see the origins of the universe. There's a problem though. When the universe was very, very, very young, the temperature was so great that there was this like plasma, I guess, and it is opaque to to radiation and light. You can't really. It's basically this wall that you can't see past. Now we can see what the universe looked like at that very very early state, but we can't see past that. That is what the cosmic microwave background radiation is, because that's been measured at now. They basically orbited the South Pole and looked into the sky, and that gave them like this kind of panoramic picture of what the universe looked like. Why is this an argument that has anything to do with what we're talking about? Well, that only works if far enough in that direction is like the direction where the Big Bang was. Now it seems to be in all directions, so maybe that doesn't even really make sense. I guess it doesn't really make sense. My thought was like, if the Big Bang started here where we are and expanded outwards, looking outwards shouldn't see back in time like that. We should only be able to see if like maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Like that's maybe what I think he's arguing. I don't know. That might have been completely off topic, but you learned something about science.
Background is we did many different quote unquote probes, and you can do it without.
And by the way, this guy can't believe in the cosmic microwave background radiation, right? Because what they circled the globe near the South Pole, which according to him should be impossible. That should have been like thousands and thousands of miles as a journey. But it wasn't. It wasn't that. So this guy can't believe that's real, right?
High altitude balloons or whatever. Anyway, they showed background radiation in all directions, and they claim that's evidence for the Big Bang. But there's two terms to be familiar with, right? Inhomogeneous and isotropic.
Oh,
and
God.
isotropic means
his
without a preferred direction. So the Big Bang cosmology claims that there's no preferred direction, like he was saying. It looks like we're in the center, but everywhere it looks like it's in the center. There's no preferred direction. It expands in all directions. But when they look at
this is what this guy has to agree to also, right? If we had spent our entire lives living on Mars instead of Earth, we would have the same observations about where Mars is like he would be here saying Mars is the center of the universe, Mars is flat, but we can observe because we're where we are that's not true.
Cosmic microwave background,
all of his observations work exactly the same on Mars.
Distribution, meaning that actually there was an axis of evil, right? So it was basically, it should have been smooth everywhere, but it was bumpy in a couple places. And when you drew the lines on those bumpy areas, it intersected on the Earth out of the entire universe.
Yep, it's his misunderstanding. Anyone want to guess why it's centered on the Earth? It's because that's where we were taking the picture. If you spin in a circle, and then while taking a picture, you take a panoramic picture of like where you are in a complete circle, you'll notice that all of the light lines are going into where you are. Isn't that wild? Why should it intersect there? Because that's where you're taking the picture, dipshit. Like
universe, and it's called the axis of evil. The CMB actually proved that the Earth was in the center. In redshift,
only if you don't understand the concept of perspective, which
everything
I guess you're a flat
away
earther,
from
so
us,
you
it makes it
don't.
look like we're in
Nathan
the center.
definitely
and that's Edwin
doesn't.
Hubble in like the 20s saying, "Oh, well, that's an illusion." So both of those are good evidence for our position.
And doesn't that seem a little bit like you're?
I just don't think these guys,
refuting-
the Guillotine and Neat Pride, are like particularly good at arguing against this kind of conspiracism, like understanding where the problems are. Like I said, I think Guillotine has really good instincts, but like I don't think he's like practiced enough and or like understanding of like how debate works enough. Like because a lot of this stuff is falling through. These are really easy things to disprove, even without some of the specific knowledge that I happen to have. But like they don't really seem to know what to say about it. They're just letting the flat earthers
from a globe position. Like if the default position is that it appears stationary and appears flat, and that the things move around us, the sky moves around us, and then when you set out to perform a test, you're admitting.
Oh, hold on. Actually, I just realized Whitsitt has already said in this debate that he thinks that like plate tectonics are real, or maybe he doesn't, but he had brought it up. If he thinks plate tectonics are real, then we know that we are in motion. The plates are moving very, very slowly, but they're moving. But we observe that we're stationary. Shouldn't that be a demonstration to him that the appearance of being stationary is not the same thing as being stationary? We are moving relative to Earth. you can know that, right? But actually, it gets even better if you're on a train. If you're on a train, it feels like you're not moving, but you are traveling across the face of the earth. Do you think that every time you get on the train, the earth moves under you? How does that work, right? But it's one of those, like, he believes this up until the point where it's a problem, and then he'll like find a problem with it in concept. Yeah.
Admitting that there's nothing you can do to test that shows that we're moving. It always has to confirm. So you can't.
No,
We
wait. Well, there
can.
are some things. There's
We
You
definitely
only
can.
support the flat Earth claim, and we can't
No.
falsify the globe.
I would like to know how you guys
Yeah,
explain
that's wrong.
why there are different seasons at different parts of the world at the
Why are
same
you
time.
changing the subject?
Right,
Yeah.
before we
Well,
get
you-
into like, I just want to say this, right?
Yeah,
I think it's
this is
important.
a pattern, and this is like kind of it's kind of a tendency with people who don't know how to argue against like specific kinds of positions, where you ask a question, you get an answer, the answer is nonsense, but you don't know how to respond to it, so you move on and ask the next question. It just makes it look like the flat earthers have answers to all the problems, even though their answers are terrible. You just don't seem to be like pushing back in the ways you need to.
important
Yeah.
that we don't have a subject, and before we address the conclusion, we just move on to, well, then I want to know how you explain the. Let's
And even
wrap
Whitsitt is
up the
complaining about
conclusion,
it.
right? The cosmic
What else
microwave
is there to
background and Reg. Okay, so it shows that the Earth is in the center. So
It
the
doesn't.
question is there
I
any
don't think it
actual
necessarily
evidence?
does.
Is there any exclusive evidence that exists that proves or shows, because you don't like proof, that the Earth moves around the sun in a solar system? Can anyone give us evidence
Well,
that's
even
exclusive
you would
to
have
the
to
Earth
argue
moving
that the
around
Earth.
the sun?
Well,
That's what we need,
like,
because that's your claim, and that's not what we observe.
I guess like you would think the sun goes around the Earth. In actuality, both are orbiting each other. Neither is really the center, I guess. It's just because we are considering the center relative, like other planets are also orbiting the sun. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's like in a way they're all orbiting each other. You know?
So
They
do
just
you want
happen
to
to
even
be
if we-
show
caught
guilty?
in the sun's
Even
gravitational
if we're
pull.
even if we showed that it rotated, the rotating and being able to show curvature would also be very important. But yeah, I don't understand that your claim of this of like the acts of evil for one. Two, I don't understand why it's like but
Yeah, this
even
is what I
if
mean.
this
Like,
is
just not
true, this
understanding
acts
the
of evil, how do you know this isn't just something that like you've interpreted this,
Yeah,
the
like reasonable instincts here. Like he doesn't get what happened. So I think I'm chalking that up a little bit to like just needing to understand how the arguments function a little bit better. Like, but understands there's something wrong with the axis of evil argument and like how he has derived this conclusion. Yeah, I mean I don't know.
It's
I
the
like
same
Eugene.
thing.
I like
The
his
scientists
instincts. It's
called
just,
it that.
I don't know.
It's called the axis of evil. You can look it up.
I feel like I'm being
Quite a few
patronizing, and I don't
people
mean
who are
to
kind
be.
of high
It just
up in
Yeah, I'm
he
just-
seems
are well
he seems
publicized or
less experienced and less than I am, less experienced in debate than I am. Which, like I said, I did competitive debate. Like it's not like a bad thing, but he has really I
public
don't know.
figures that are.
I do feel like I'm
are
being
aware
patronizing,
of
but I
the
don't mean to
axis of
be. I do
evil,
think
and
he has
That's
good
what they
instincts.
call it.
That's what I
No,
want.
They
wait,
can
what is
call-
the
they
axis
can-
of evil again? Like I'm confused.
it's
Right,
the
so
name
I-
given-
It sounds weird, right? Because evil isn't science. That's like
Yeah.
some emotional, moral
Yeah,
argument.
not
Yeah.
an
So,
emotion.
but that's what they called it. So they called it the axis of evil because this is around the time where we had like the Middle Eastern situation going on, and George Bush called them the axis of evil. So he just named it there based on the political climate. The idea of it being evil is that it just didn't go
I would bet
along
that it
with
wasn't
the
scientists
model.
that named it
Like,
that,
it was
and it was
supposed to
flat earthers who
show
named
that
it
the
that.
Earth is insignificant. Everything is distributing everywhere. For some
It's
reason,
refuting
there was a
that to believe that.
23.4 degree tilted anisotropic distribution of energy that intersected on the Earth. It's called the axis of evil. Because that's their term, not our term. And no one's ever explained that, by the way. The current academic explanation is, oh, well, maybe the instrument's messed up.
Well,
So
it's
there-
also, I mean, there might be something to do with just like where the image was being taken from, but also we have no idea whether we would get a similar intersection if we had taken the same observation from like Mars, right? You could do the same thing on any planet, but we only really have access to this one. It's possible that if you did it from somewhere else, like maybe you'd get multiple intersections from Mars. You know, what if we got 12 intersections on Alpha Centauri? What does that mean?
There is no explanation.
Yeah, I have to
So,
look
I
more
mean,
into it.
It's an
It's all good.
intersection
This
of-
is also
of
like the flat earther thing. Like they're gonna bring up things until there's a thing you've never heard of, and they're gonna act like they know more about it, but they misunderstand it. It's nonsense. And we can
what
just
of
move on.
the what they're measuring up in the sky. It intersects with us being at the center, and that could have something to do with the machine itself being the epicenter of its receiver and
Hey,
of its
look at that. Even you know
of
that that's a
its
problem.
what is it called, processor and everything. Like it's doing all of its function out of the center of itself, so that could have something to do with it. But that also does, that observation of the cosmic microwave background radiation does align again with Einstein and saying that it appears like we're at the center. So
Yes,
it doesn't actually
appears,
conflict
but
with the
doesn't
globe
demonstrate.
in that explanation. They're actually covered. They cover the
But notice we're also
CMB.
talking
Oh,
about
actually,
geocentrism,
wait,
not
wait.
flat Earth.
That's not true though, because they say the Earth
Hey,
is.
finally we got it. This is what I was talking about. Like flat earthers don't see eye to eye on literally anything. So when they act like they're just arguing for the truth, none of them have the same idea of what's going on. They can't all be correct, but they act like they are. They're not a group of people who all believe the truth. They are a bunch of disconnected people who have similar ideas but are all wrong and all disagree with each other. So finally we get some disagreement where like Nathan has one belief, Witsit seems to believe something else, and they're going to argue with each other. This is the kind of thing I would be like. It would be good to try to engineer, but it'd be hard to actually get. We finally have
is
it.
tilted on a 23.4 degree axis. And that's
Mhm.
why the sun has the ecliptic plane. So we see the sun move in like a plane, right? An ecliptic.
Yeah.
And so they say, oh, well, it's because the earth is tilted. And it makes it look like that. Well, the CMB showed that tilt goes far beyond the quote unquote solar system. It goes all the way out into deep space, which means it cannot be because of the tilt of our position.
No, it
or it would only be
absolutely could.
local. It's all the way out into space. Relativity kind
Right,
of
but like it's also like if there is an absolute XYZ axis in the universe, why couldn't the Earth be tilted relative to that? Right? If there is a center, why can't we be tilted relative to that? And it happens to be the same. Why is that
explain that. No one
impossible?
can explain that. The current explanation is, oh, the data must be wrong. It's okay if you're
I
not familiar
don't
with it.
believe
If you
that
guys
his
want to move on
representation
to
of the current
something else, that's
explanation.
fine. Like we can talk about whichever one you
Yeah.
want to, the geometry
We
or the
can, we can
motion.
do whatever y'all want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the globe earthers should be trying to lead the conversation a little bit because, like, while yes, some of these topics are fine to go over, if you only ever talk about what the flat earther is comfortable talking about, you're never going to get to the things they're uncomfortable talking about. You know?
I just don't understand on that one. Even like just because somebody calls it the axis of evil doesn't mean that one, it is evil.
But you don't
And
have to
two,
call it evil or an axis of. You can call it the cosmic microwave background radiation. It's the same. It's
I
just
just want to know what, like, we're talking about the evidence. Like, who cares what someone called it? I think it's funny that they called it evil.
He says
That's
they
not
called it evil.
scientific
My
I
guess
just
is
don't-
it's like flat earthers.
Yeah, it's
all
like the
over.
God particle.
That's also weird to call
Yeah.
something the God particle. It's
Yeah,
weird.
that was a really
And
bad.
at CERN, they
Wrong
have a
move.
deity statue of Shiva, the destroyer deity.
Why do I get the
outside
feeling that
CERN
that's
for
not
whatever reason? A
correct?
bunch
That's
of
a coincidence.
scientists have religious statues.
And they call it the God particle because it gives mass to the majority of the particles. But so, like, would you want to talk about the
See what I mean? Like
motion?
he's putting gives mass in quotes. He doesn't believe in scientific discoveries. He only believes in scientific evidence if he can twist it to conform with his view of the cosmos. If it can't, he'll call into question. I'm sure the God particle I'm guessing the God particle doesn't have any impact on his actual beliefs. That's why he's not opposed to it. But he's putting it in quotes because, like, well, if it does disprove something about my worldview, I want to be able to call into
Geometry is
question
what I'm
later.
asking. Like that's a different one. That's like the solar system. I can tell you right now, I can save us time. I had a conversation on my channel, which it gets it on YouTube, PhD astronomer. Okay, he's a professor in astronomy. He quickly conceded that there's a kinematic equivalence with the geocentric position, meaning that all the motion that we see in the sky is equally explained on a stationary Earth. All of it, retrograde, parallax,
Yeah,
aberration,
because
all the
that's a
motion of the
relativistic principle. You
planets and the
cannot tell.
stars are perfectly
You cannot. You can only determine things relative to your own position. You can never be in a different position than your position, which means that everything will always look like it is relative to you. But that doesn't prove that we're at the center. That just is an understanding that we couldn't demonstrate otherwise either. But we could. It seems unlikely given that we'd have the same observations elsewhere.
explained from a
No matter
stationary
where we
position as well.
were,
They're
it
equally
would
valid
appear
according to
that
relativity.
we are in the center.
We can save
and
time with
stationary.
that. If you guys have evidence that the Earth is moving or a ball, we would love to hear it. And we
But
can
again,
cover
Yeah,
what you
let's
brought
motion
up.
is
also-
irrelevant.
Was he saying it's a stationary like globe or a stationary like flat plane? What was his?
That's a separate part. So like if it's in the center
Yeah,
or not is not
it's a
particularly
separate part. Even he is aware. He is distracted from this conversation up
related
until
to
Yeah,
this
I
the
point.
mean,
shape.
well, it could be in the center, but that doesn't really determine whether it's flat or not.
Well,
Thank
It
you.
could just be
can
the
I share
center.
my
But
screen real
it's
quick?
too late because we've already
Good,
wasted
good luck
time on this.
explaining a
Sure.
stationary globe in space, though. It's gonna be tough.
It's the
It
same.
would
It's
be
exactly
kinda
the
It's
same.
just that it all like I've heard it before. What's his name? Singenis.
Robertson
I've heard
Genis,
it.
he's
Robertson
also on
Dennis.
my
That's the geocentrist documentary guy.
channel.
I've heard it from him.
He
The
likes
whole
it. Yeah.
like the everything rotates around it, but like
and that
yeah.
generates the force of
So
the
what I'm trying to get at
turning.
is
Yeah.
Well,
how
here, look,
Uses
this
look
kind
at
of how
Newtonian
y'all showing that
mechanics.
it's flat.
here.
Okay, let's go to geometry then. If you want to do
Let me
geometry,
show this to start the geometry talk here. This here, these are 4 lights that are all they're 1 foot off the ground, and these 4 lights are 5, 6, 7,
A
and
flat
8.
earther will never buy this. Like, this does not like it's been edited in that you wrote stuff on it, so he'll be like, "What kind? You might have edited a million times. How do we know that you actually did it this way? You're lying to us." There's
Miles
no way he'll
away,
accept this.
and they all are in a straight line, whereas a globe would have them getting further and further bent down. Because if you think of like a circle, how it's curved, like the further out you go, the more downward your direction starts to tend. So the further out you go, there's a more extreme drop. So these, if you plot what we observe here at 5, 6, 7, and 8 miles out, if you plot that on a graph, these points are in a straight line. And this is actually from an observer height of like 7 inches. So the camera is actually tilted up at these lights. So this is actually a geometric proof. I know in science it's evidence, but you can coordinate this
good
out on a
evidence,
Cartesian
but they'll
coordinate
never
system,
buy that.
and
Like,
it will
they will
plot
never
out
believe that this happened the way you said it did.
water is planar, because if you put all of these points together, it forms a line. So this is a geometrical proof showing that water is planar in bodies of water like lakes and oceans.
They're never going to buy this. They've never
What do you
heard of
guys
this
think?
before, and they're going to come up with reasons why it's nonsense.
I need like another diagram. It's hard to really tell what I'm looking at. It's like 3 or 4 blurry dots.
Oh, I
Where is
thought
this?
Basically,
Nathan was the one
On
who
the
was
other-
presenting
basically
this.
all the lights
Yeah.
should.
Oh, Nathan was talking
yeah,
about.
different
Oh, then this was
positions
probably
on the
And
globe
here-
with different refractive
I don't know what was
indices.
going on
But
here.
wait,
let me
so
put
then
it like
where's
this.
like the location of the lights? Is there like a
yeah,
top-down angle to look at?
Wait,
Let-
hold
let
on.
me-
Hold on. I thought this was being presented as globe Earth evidence because it appeared to be that to me. Let me see the image again. Maybe I shouldn't be going back, given that YouTube's freaking out and we don't have that much time. Oh, please, YouTube. If I understand, I
Cartesian coordinate
thought.
system.
Okay, this is really weird. Yeah, I don't understand this observation. I would have to know more about what's going on. I don't know, but this seems very, very strange. They're all in a straight line, 1 foot off the ground, a meter up. At a minimum, the 7 seems further away than the 5 and 6. It's smaller, right? Like, shouldn't that be? Oh wait, no, hold on. These are different colors. That's a huge problem. Light doesn't travel the same. Oh my god, different wavelengths. Oh my. Okay, so I don't know enough about what's going on here, to be honest, and I don't want to do what I was accusing the flat earthers of being about to do.
The lights. Is there like a top-down angle to look at?
This
location, the weather,
Yeah, I just
like
don't
so many
understand enough
different
about what's going on
factors
here.
that could
You got
cause
this,
this
bro.
to happen.
That said, I've seen demonstrations of the curvature of the Earth that do work a lot better than this. Folding Ideas has a really great video about flat Earth stuff. I think it's like searching for a flat Earth or in search of a flat Earth, something like that. Where he does an experiment where he's like, okay, we're looking down this 7-kilometer stretch of lake where we can see through to the other side. It's like a long, flat area, and we can take a camera that's 3 feet above the surface, or I guess it's 1 meter above the surface, then slide it down to being right above the surface, keeping an eye on a tree in the background, and look, it seems to fall beneath the horizon. There's the demonstration.
I'm gonna be back in like 2 minutes. Nathan, you got
This
it.
is doable. It's
So this
possible
is
to
is
see
in the
these
winter.
things.
This is on a frozen
And
lake.
notice the only thing that this guy has as evidence is a grainy photo written on it where he's going to tell you what the situation was, and you're like, oh, okay, you definitely did these things correctly. A debate about whether the Earth is round. Why? Oh, Peachy Keen. This is not the first time, and mostly because it's fun. I would recommend, I'm not going to go back and over it, but like you can, when this video comes up, you should watch Nathan's opening. It is wild. but mostly because it's fun. Flat earthers are insane, and it's neat
And so
to
this
see
is
it happen.
I think Rock Lake, and these lights are 5, 6, 7, 8 miles apart, and the 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away, 1 mile apart each. And the observer, he's at an observer height of 7 inches, and he sees these all in a straight line. And what what this does is, if you think like this 5
Wait, no,
mile
that should
away.
be literally impossible. Hold on. There's something else going on. That's actually literally impossible. Because even flat earthers have to acknowledge that the distance you can see is 3 miles away. That's about how far it is to the horizon. After that, things start to like dip beneath. Now you can mitigate that a little bit with height, right? That makes sense on an Earth round Earth model, because if you're looking like this, well, if you look higher up, you can, or I guess this is too low. Like if you're standing here, right? If you increase your elevation, you can see farther away, right? It makes sense. But flat earthers are like, well, that's just how far you can see, even though they know if you go higher, you can see more stuff. This is 7 inches off the ground. How the hell did it see something 8 miles away? On both models, that should be impossible. There's something they're not telling us about this experiment.
Light, this is 1 foot off the ground, right? So what the official globe narrative is, that at 3 miles, back in the ancient Greeks' time, they were watching ships disappear bottom first
And you
over
can still see
the
this, by the way.
horizon, over the curve of
Go
the
to
Earth,
someplace with
supposedly,
water,
and
like
that
go to
a
an ocean,
6 foot high
watch
ship
boats.
was supposed to be able to get hidden at 3 miles away from the observer.
Right.
So you have something
But
that
that's
is
an observation
1/6
that
of
you
the height
also
of a
have.
boat, and it's almost 2 times further away, and it's still
So
visible.
my question, Nathan, is do you think we can see further than that? Because it's demonstrable that we can't. You have to have an explanation of why we can't see further than 3 miles. And then once you have that explanation, now you have to tell me how the fuck you saw something 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away from 7 inches off the ground. If you think that's just how far you can see,
I mean, but I've seen the ships disappear bottom first,
So
Yeah.
like
It's
with
a
my eyes.
poor
yeah,
answer.
okay.
but
And so
Yeah.
here's the
fine,
thing is, you can, like, this would be something. This is an observation we make.
Wait, just show me
Look.
like with a ship, maybe. Like this is too abstract for me. Do you have
Okay,
like a
Yeah,
ship
these
and
are
not
really
Yeah,
disappearing
this is a
bottom first?
really weird.
Yeah,
piece
let
of-
me-
It's
Really
just
good
like a
evidence.
random photo.
Let
Yeah.
me see. Right here. So this is like a ship disappearing, or a buoy. But you can see it, and then when they zoom out.
Isn't the moon further than 3 miles away, or stars? So this is where you get to kind of an issue, and this is why it's really rough how flat earthers approach things. Yes, the moon and the stars are further than 3 miles away. However, flat earthers understand that that's a problem, and they never actually cop to what their worldview is. They'll never actually describe what they think the universe is like, except in opposition to a globe model. So when you say, hey, why can't you see further than 3 miles? Oftentimes the answer is because that's just how far people can see. And you go, okay, then how can we see the moon? Some of them will say it's only 3 miles away. It's the dome above the Earth. It's just that far. Stars look smaller because they are smaller. Some of them will say like, oh, we'll say a different answer as to why we can only see 3 miles. It's impossible to nail them down on this problem because they never describe what their world is like. This is why you have to make them describe the world. Make them say something that you can demonstrate to be false. Instead, they always dance around, like, especially Witsit. He goes out of his way to not describe what he thinks the world is, only saying, no, not globe, definitely flat, and what that means I will not explain, so that when you have this problem or that problem, he can make up any answer he wants. It only matters for that moment and not past it.
You're gonna see that the buoy disappears.
Yeah, and it's
And so
disappearing
this
bottom
is
up.
how you can
bottom,
get
yeah.
bottom up disappearance, and you can cause things. This is what I want to find
Wait,
is
wait, what? Hold
Isn't
on.
that
How is
proof
that evidence
of
of
this, though?
anything?
I can still see it.
Wait. Just so you guys understand, like
Yeah.
boats would disappear from the bottom up optically on a plain Earth.
No, they
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Wait.
On a plain Earth, they would shrink into the horizon until you couldn't see it anymore. It would like shrink to a dot and then vanish on a plane. If something just gets too far away for you to see it, it appears to gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it vanishes. It doesn't go over a horizon, go over. It doesn't disappear bottom up. You can see this with stars. You can see them from very far away, and when they're too far to see, when a star is like too far to see, we don't see it at all. And then if something is like, if it's somewhat closer, we don't just see the top of it. We see the whole of it very small.
Why?
That's what
Oh
I
yeah,
can,
no problem.
That's just not true.
I'll find it and I'll pull it up here. But
Even Everest is higher
here's
than
the
3
thing,
miles.
is that the
Is it?
globe
I
and the flat
actually don't
Earth
know
are
how
making
tall Everest
claims,
is. I
and
guess
we
that
make
shouldn't surprise me.
observations in reality. And so,
But can you see the tip of Everest from the base? I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I understand like that's not actually a thing about the 3 mile thing, but often they haven't told what their answer is, by the way, for the 3 mile problem. They've just said like this is what the globe Earth says, but we have the same observations of you can't really see past 3 miles. Um, because of the curvature of the Earth, unless you seek greater elevation. But yet somehow they have this picture of seeing these lights from 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away from 7 inches off the ground. I don't believe that that's what was going on. It should be impossible, even on their model.
what the flat Earth is able to do is the flat Earth can make a claim and make an observation, and they can say, okay, we see bottom up disappearance. The flat Earth says that that is caused by temperature change in the air and the difference of temperature between.
So he says we can say this, which is a really prescient choice of words because yeah, you can say anything. You make up shit all the time. It doesn't mean that's actually what's going on.
Air and the surface. So what now a flat Earth can do is they can go to a flat.
That's how they saw it. Atmospheric refraction. I forgot about this. Part of the reason why you can see things further away over water is because the vapor and stuff like that bends the light over the curve of the Earth. That's how they were able to see it from that far away. But that's a huge issue for them because that bending of light means that this observation doesn't necessarily prove anything. The same mechanisms that they use to discredit any evidence, we can use to discredit theirs, given that some of these are real problems. Especially when we have a grainy photo of 4 lights with numbers written on it, and you're totally, I definitely promise this is exactly what happened and what was observed promise,
surface and demonstrate bottom up disappearance, which is the observed phenomenon.
You just had a video
using
of it.
the conditions that they
I'm still
claimed,
confused. I can look at my window and see mountains
realistic...
above Chatsworth 10 miles away. Well, yeah, because you're looking upwards. So the 3 mile thing is real, Peachy Keen. So the 3 mile thing is actually real. If you are looking across a flat surface, right? There's no obstructions, whatever. I shouldn't say flat. Let's say you're looking across the ocean. You would be able to see a buoy 3 miles away at the same height as you, like from the surface, like at the same height or something like that. Or maybe it's from 6 feet up. I forget exactly what the numbers are. That observation is actually real. The reason why you can see mountains from farther is because they're not on the ground. They're further up. So you're looking not like this, you're looking like this. And that means you can see things that are at the top. You can't see the base of those mountains from where you are. And in fact, a lot of these claims from flat earthers, that's the problem, is they say, well, we can see the mountain, so shouldn't this be nonsense? But they can't see the base of the mountain. They can see the top. Your angle is very, very different. And that changes what you're able to see. You can basically see a sphere around you, right? And so the edge of the sphere, the diameter, or I guess the circumference here, that would comprise the horizon. That is about 3 miles away from you. But when you're seeing a mountain, you're looking up here. And past here, it's not a sphere. It starts as this circle, but you can see kind of outwards, right? But you're looking upwards, and so you can see something like that. The mountain would have to be farther away because the tip of it is so much higher. There are calculators. There are Earth curvature calculators you can find online trivially, and you can do the math like, okay, how tall is this thing? How much should be occluded by the curvature, so on and so forth. And yeah, seeing mountains from your house 10 miles away, that's not weird. I understand the intersection of the sphere and the Earth, and the sphere of my vision is 3 mile radius. Yeah, basically, it's not. I shouldn't say it's a 3 mile radius because you can see upwards much further than that, right? We can see the sun that's thousands of miles away. Um, Partially, it's really big, but also like there's not anything in the way. It's 3 miles to the horizon because that's when the curve gets in the way. That's when the Earth gets in the way of what you're saying. A great example of this is the thing I was mentioning before, the experiment done by Folding Ideas in his video about flat Earth stuff. He takes this into account of like it's exactly the curvature of the Earth gets in the way. How far can you see in this curvature calculator stuff? Maybe we should end with that because I do actually have to get ready. Yeah, we'll go for like another 5 minutes or something.
Possibilities, and you get the observed phenomena. And I'm going to pull that bottom up disappearance up. But let me tell you this about that 4 light experiment. I've talked to several pretty big anti-flat earthers or globers that go against flat Earth, and
that doesn't mean anything.
I've asked, can you show me a demonstration where you recreate that observation, because that's a real world observation.
Well, I don't know what the circumstances
on a known
are.
Curved surface, claiming any variable you want, refraction, give yourself the right refractive index, claim whatever you want, and show a recreation where on a known curved surface, those lights that are definitely on a curved surface can just appear to be flat.
Well, the problem is, of course, even if it could be demonstrated, which it probably can, the known curved surface that we're talking about is massive. The curve relative to us is very small. So to recreate that, you'd have to have not just a known curved surface, but a massive curved surface. It's not sufficient to do that. Like, you could recreate it at scale with a basketball or something, but then the lights would be tiny. You'd have to get a very, very small camera to take the right picture, right? Like, it's just very difficult to emulate the Earth because it's so big.
No demonstration associating the claimed cause and then shown, but the flat Earth can do that. And then I'll pull up here the bottom up disappearance.
But it also can't, right? Like,
yeah, and I will say it takes some time to understand this, but like I'm gonna break this down. Give me like 1 minute. Okay, so like if
this is part of why stuff like this is why it's really, really important. If you're going into a flat Earth debate, you need to have concrete examples of experiments that you can do that demonstrate the curve of the Earth. They exist. They're not that hard to come up with. We've already come up with several in previous instances. Like I said, Folding Ideas did that one where he went to a big lake and he could demonstrate the observation. One that's a little harder, but I came up with for the Australian guy is get in a boat and circle Antarctica, doing 2 things, noting how it is that you have to navigate, like plot your navigation not relative to the land, but like what changes in course do you have to make? Because you should have to turn away from the land if it's a flat Earth and towards the land if it's a sphere Earth. And then the other thing is measure the distance. And the distance should be much, much smaller than the flat Earth model. That's another thing you could do. Like, there are a lot of experiments you could do, but it's important to come ready with them because flat earthers have bad experiments that they misunderstand. And it seems, and you couldn't possibly respond to them because, like, what did Nathan show us? He showed us pictures with 4 lights, and he made a lot of claims about what was going on. But do we know that was what was going on? Do we know that these observations are actually incorrect? Like, there's so much to dig into that you can't argue on those grounds. You have to argue on your own.
The end of a long hallway, the ground's gonna look like it's ramping up. The skies, the roof, the ceiling is going to look like it's ramping down. They're converging, right? We can all agree on that. It's just a fact that perspective cause. Just like if you look at railroads, they converge. We'll flip them on the side. We're going to converge to the middle. So if I look at a hallway, it looks like it's converging to the middle. Okay, so the bottom is ramping up. Well, is the boat closer to the bottom or the top? It's closer to...
Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But then you also have to answer the question of railroads. Why can't you see, if you have railroad track stretching 10 miles, why can't you see past 3 miles of the track? Right? It's because it's curving away from you. But the reason why, like, but no, that wouldn't, and you don't observe that the, like, anything else, or you don't, that perspective line thing should mean it should get smaller and smaller and smaller until it reaches the horizon and then vanish. It shouldn't disappear bottom up. Even his explanation doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
To the water at the bottom. And this is where it gets a bit technical, but it's not that complicated, okay? There's something called reception and propagation angles. So everything is light. Now I don't actually believe that light
This
travels.
Witsit guy loves the like. Here's some term that I misunderstand that you definitely have never heard of before, so I can seem like I'm intelligent even though I don't get what this is, and I'm lying to you about how we can apply it.
But it doesn't matter. I might be delayed again. But anyway, so
This is
Wait, you
probably
don't
we're gonna
believe
cut it.
light
Yeah,
bubbles?
yeah.
I
Explain the
just want to
light
hear the
thing.
Yeah,
answer.
no, yeah.
What
Okay,
we're
light-
talking about there.
Explain that real quick.
Yeah, this
Like-
is the problem. Okay, I do have to get ready and get going, so I'm gonna cut it here. But also, I'm just seeing the pattern too much, and I don't want to sit through any more of it anyway. Like you notice, like Nathan and Witsit will say something, it's nonsense. Guillotine and Neat Pride will sometimes be able to have a reasonable response to it. If they do, it's coming from Guillotine. But the response is like insufficient, and they don't understand the problems well enough. This is kind of an issue. Is like flat earthers pretend to know much more than than most people actually know about stuff, and so you have to know an absurd amount to really argue with them on anything. And we saw Witsit do the same thing previously, where he just keeps shifting until you don't know about whatever thing he wants to complain about. He'll bring up a thing. If you know, we'll go to the next thing, we'll go to the next thing until he finds a thing you don't know about. Never wants to argue about a thing that his opponents actually might be able to respond to. But of course, like Neat Pride and Guillotine didn't seem like I feel like they came into this being like it should be trivial to argue against flat Earth. The problem is this is a conspiracy that has had a long time to develop and concretize. So the experienced ones, especially like Witsit, have a lot of things they can trot out to make it seem like they're correct, even though they're obviously wrong, and none of it makes sense even on their model, which is I think Witsit might actually be aware that his model doesn't work, and that's why he refuses to present one, even though he has ideas about how the world is. He just wants to run away from his burden of proof of proving anything. It yeah, so I unfortunately I don't think Guillotine and Neat Pride did that good of a job here. Guillotine, I was very impressed at his instincts because he doesn't strike me as someone who has a lot of experience with debate, but what he chose to focus on very frequently was the exact right thing to focus on, in my opinion. So that was really interesting. But as I say, I got to get going. This was wacky. If you want to see the wackiest parts of it and you missed prior stuff in the stream, go to Nathan's opening. Oh my god, was it just completely off the rails. But otherwise, I'm going to sign off for the week. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.